This vodka is good, by the way. Is this BOLDCAST vodka as well? Shh. It's water. It's water. I'm sure my mind has embellished this, but I remember this classroom, all these people sitting, this feeling of trepidation. I'm walking in. They had those classroom windows at the top. You know, the light was filtering through, and there's this beautiful light shining on this girl as she stands there introducing herself. She was 20, I was 24, and she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. The most gorgeous woman, the light catching her perfectly. And of course, I was walking in, we were just walking through the market, and then these guys were looking at me, and then people were looking, and I was like, what the freak is going on?
Yeah.
You know? And I was actually getting a little irritated. I was like, what's going on? And eventually at one point I said to Christy, this is freaking me out. She goes, oh my word. It must be because of, you need to be able to say when something comes along that asks you to just let that anchor go. Don't worry. Come on. Who knows where this goes? Hey, life's an adventure. And you're like, okay, let me just do this thing. It's not what I want to do. It's not the direction I want to go in. It's not who I am, but let me do this. One day I can choose. Problem with that is you keep going a bit further and further and further and further away from who you want to be. See, our kids are growing up in a world where the future is AI. I'm saying the future is the disenchantment with AI, and that they must be ready for when that moment comes. Life is precious, and we don't know why, but we know it. And how you know that is try and kill anyone and see how they react. Okay? For some reason, even people who want to die,
they want to live,
are going to fight for their lives. Why? Because life is precious.
Sure.
Why do you give other people children who don't want them? And here I am, a Christian man who promises you at the cost of my life that I will raise Christian children. I will teach them all about you. And I said to him in the exact words, I said, God, don't you want my children? And I was begging for an answer. And again, I heard that still small voice that I'd heard years before. And he said to me, how do you keep your child safe? Because when I was a kid, the most dangerous place for a child was some dark alley or out in the street or in some dodgy park. Stranger danger, remember?
Yeah.
Well, these days, the most dangerous place for your child, is in their bedroom with their phone. You see, everything that used to happen in those dark, dodgy alleyways is now happening.
Nico Panagio in the house. Welcome to the In Hindsight BOLDCAST.
Thank you very much, Heinz. Much appreciated. Good to be here.
I'm so glad you're here, bro. What a fun moment for me, because you know we've come a long way. We've known each other for a couple of years, but apart from that, I'm just excited to have you here in all the capacities that you carry. You know, we know something about wearing many hats. Husband, father, MC, actor, scriptwriter, producer. I mean, you have so many.
Hustle.
Gotta keep going. Nico Hasselhoff.
Yeah, something like that. Every single one of us has that middle name in this business.
Yeah. Gotta keep the fires burning, eh? But it's great to have you here, and I'm so excited for you to be in the studio. I'm glad you could take time off of your very crazy schedule. And so what I like to do here is to first help people to get to know you, and then we can talk about some stuff that's close to your heart and that you are passionate about. And we have to kick off with the one thing that's probably your biggest passion after Jesus, and that's your beautiful wife. I don't know how many people know your story. I think for me, it's always funny when we are in public with you and people still come up and greet you by your old Siemandelon Day names. I'm sure it's frustrating, but for us, it's very entertaining. But you guys have a beautiful story, going back quite some time in the industry. Both actors started out that way. Can you start by sharing this with us? What was that moment for you personally where you just knew she's the one? She's the one.
Yeah. So this story. Yeah, well, let me say we've known each other for a couple of decades, I think, not just a couple of years.
Oh, wow, yeah, that's true.
It's been some time.
We're getting
now. Older.
We're there now.
Not old, just older.
Older, yeah.
It's a story that many people have heard maybe or read somewhere, but a lot of people don't realize that Christy and I did not meet on the set of Seven de Laan. So a lot of people
contrary
think
to
that,
popular belief.
Indeed,
Yeah.
indeed. So it's not frustrating being called George and Karin still after 70, 18 years since we've left the show. But did you know you do not have to wait 24 hours to report a child missing? The sooner we start searching, the better. Missing Children South Africa is a registered Section 18A non-profit organization that assists the authorities and loved ones when a child goes missing anywhere in South Africa. We've been operating nationally for over 15 years, providing a support service that is absolutely free to anyone that needs us. We facilitate incident reports, we liaise with investigating officers, and we counsel loved ones. We also distribute flyers to our vast social media networks to make sure that when a child goes missing, all that can be done is being done to bring them back home safely. And for awareness, we distribute safety tips and educational material to parents and children on social media, at schools and other public spaces. We also work closely with childcare services to make sure that when a child is recovered, that they're returned to a safe environment. It's such a powerful part of our lives. I'm talking about Seven de Laan now, in the sense that we felt like we were part of an era, for Afrikaans and Afrikaans television, and it was such a blessing and a privilege, even though we didn't necessarily realize it at the time. One does, in retrospect, look back and go, wow, that was a special time, and we were part of a really special moment in time, and
it did put you on the map in a way, in the industry.
It did. I mean, every single Afrikaans actor and many English actors and some Russians.
And anyone that wants to learn Afrikaans
would make an appearance on Seven de Laan. And you say that, but a lot of people have come up to me and say, I learn Afrikaans from watching Seven de Laan. So I don't even know which country that was from, but anyway,
sounds like a couple.
I was trying to be nondescript so that there was no
no one can be offended.
Exactly. But yeah, so Christy and I met in drama school. So a longer story I won't get into is that I was I was a professional nightclubber.
A professional nightclubber.
Back in the 90s. So that's what me and my mates did. We were ravers.
Raving away.
Before it was called rave, so it was still underground house, So we were part of that underground
movement. You were the
cool
kids.
We were the first. Yeah,
of course.
But it's not an accolade I carry with pride. But we were the first partiers. We knew all the DJs, and so we were very young and went to all these amazing clubs, and it's memories that I'll keep for a lifetime. But also, one of the darkest parts of my life was that time. You get stuck into this world, you get sucked into that party scene, the 60s of the 90s, essentially, where it's this culture that you just get sucked into. It's so alluring, and before you know it, it starts out with all the the glamour and the just that feeling like you're part of something that's bigger than you, and that the grown-ups don't even know what this is like, and you're starting a whole new sort of carving out a new future for youth in your country by just being a party animal. I'm not sure how that works, but in your mind it makes sense.
Yeah. It's a form of hedonism.
It's hedonism.
It becomes identity. It becomes 100%. The group thing. I'm like part of something.
Much so. I'm part of something. And I think it's a youth thing, and it's beautiful when it's aimed in the right direction, because you see a lot of revival happening that way. A lot of beautiful things happen that way, but not if it's in a nightclub.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, I spent a lot of time in nightclubs. It starts out great, and anyone who knows the story knows that after a few years you find yourself sitting alone in that nightclub, looking around going, what am I doing here? And
you're not the first to tell that kind of story.
Yeah, exactly. So I soon after realizing that I need to leave this lifestyle, which happened on my knees in a toilet cubicle, praying to the Lord, saying, Lord Jesus, please save me from this world.
Wow.
Like I said, we'll tell that story another time. I started it was a pivotal point in my life, and within a couple of weeks, I remember I was living in Pretoria. I'm a Pretoria old boy, and grew up in Pretoria. And
is that where you cut your teeth on Afrikaans?
On many things. And I was driving down Linwood Road, I think, and there were these big posters up on the lampposts, as they were back then. and it was drama school, drama acting classes were being advertised, and I was like, that's what I've always wanted to do, because I've always done drama throughout since I was my first job as an actor. I was in standard 1. How old are you in standard 1? I don't even know.
Grade 3.
Grade 3.
Now they call it grade 3, but
yeah.
you know, we in the good old days we used to call it the right thing, standard 1.
Standard 1, yeah. I remember they came to our school, and they were looking for people to come and cast for The King and I with Joe Stewardson and Judy Page as the leads, and it played at Pretoria State Theatre, and that was my first gig as an actor. So I landed a role.
That's a serious gig.
It was a serious gig. My first acting gig was in a proper Pretoria State Theatre play.
How old were you?
With Joe and Judy, and I was standard 1. How old are you?
Oh, of course. Sorry.
So I played the part of one of the princes, and it was my first taste of the theatre. And after that, I was hooked, and so I played in every school play and whatever since then. And but in high school, I went into sports more. I was doing water polo and swimming and rugby, and kind of sort of lost the flavour of drama. And then one day, when I was coming out of this party scene and wondering what am I going to do with my life, I went to watch my younger sister Nikki. She was doing a school play. She's 8 years younger than I, and I was sitting in that theatre, school theatre, looking at her performing and loving it. She's a natural, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is what I missed. This is what I loved, and so that part and parcel with driving past this poster that said part-time drama classes, because I couldn't do it full-time. I remember I went to my dad. I was working for my father at the time, managing his detergent manufacturing business, soaps basically, and he wanted me to take the business over one day, and run it and turn it into a soap empire of South Africa.
Wow.
That wasn't what I wanted at all. I remember
it makes me think of Fight Club for some reason.
Yeah.
Making
very,
soap.
Very different. I remember sitting in his office in front of him, and my dad still has that Greek accent, and I said to him,
get the mic closer for that.
I said to him, Dad, I want to be an actor. I want to act. He's like, you want to what? You want to be an actor? What? You want to what? I said, Dad, I want to be an actor. It's my passion. I realize this is what I want. Now, bear in mind, my father's been watching his son in the party scene and, just watching me, waste my life away.
Right.
Dreaming of the day that I come and say, Dad, I'm ready to take over the business.
He's been waiting for that.
I want to go and do an MBA. I want to become and he's like,
a business mogul.
When I sat him down, he thought this is the moment. And then out of my mouth came, I want to be an actor. And my father was like, you want to be an actor? Who are you going to act? What are you going to do? Where you go? Actors don't make money. I was like, but Dad. And
but I'm passionate about this.
Passionate about this.
Yeah.
And anyway, long story short, he said, look, if you want to act, you pay for it yourself. And so I had to do part-time drama classes. So I remember.
That's hectic.
Very much so. But hey, I mean.
But that showed your commitment.
I think that sets you apart. It goes, hang on. Everything I've received up until now has kind of been given to me, and I've squandered it.
Okay.
If I want to embark on this new path, and this is within weeks where I asked God very clearly, please help me change my life. And when the minute I made that decision, I now in retrospect can look back and see just how he was waiting for me to make that decision, because the minute he did, things started falling into place. And I remember walking into drama class that day, and I remember I was walking towards this class, and as I got there, actually, if I may, can I scoot back a second
please,
and say that it was back in the day of voice message answering machines, the recording machine.
When you had something at your house saying, leave a message.
I phoned the number on this poster, and the message comes on, and then it says, this is the Method Actors Training Center. Please leave a message.
Oh, Method Actors.
Method Actors Training Center. And so I leave a message, and I'm, hey man, it's me, and I've seen your poster, and so I get a message back on my answering machine going, hey, this is Stefani from Method Actors Training Center. Hello, Stefani, if you're watching this. My class is full already. I don't have space. I only take so many people. I'm very strict with that. But something in your voice, I don't know what it is. I feel like I should take one more, and so I'm going to give you that shot.
Wow.
And I was like, oh gosh, thank you. And I remember walking towards this class on an odd Tuesday night, and getting to the classroom, and it's empty. And I'm like, what the heck, And so I turn around and I walk away, and I'm so despondent, and I feel like, you know what? This was a mistake. this is clearly an indication. And I'm walking, I go out the turnstile because the classes were at Pretoria, University of Pretoria. I walk out the turnstile, I'm walking towards my car. My father was right. What was I thinking? I mean, I can't be an actor. What am I,
Sure.
out of my mind? And as I'm walking and going and actually feeling relieved, because I was a little bit, it was
Of course,
quite,
yeah.
I had some trepidation about going to this and am I doing the right thing? And an actor, and I hear this voice behind me going, "Excuse me," and I turn around and I see this girl standing there, very arty looking, short, weird hair, weird outfit on, and I'm like, and she goes, "Are you looking for the drama class?" And I'm like, well. She goes, "We've moved upstairs, it's very full this year," and I'm like, "Okay." She goes, "Come, I'll show you."
I
I'm
just
like,
missed the venue.
Geez,
Okay.
So then she took me upstairs, door opens up, I walk in, there's all these drama students sitting in a circle, talking to one another, introducing one another to one another, and there's this girl she's standing and she's busy, obviously introducing herself to the class, as you do at the beginning of the year, and I'm sure my mind has embellished this, but I remember this classroom, all these people sitting, this feeling of trepidation. I'm walking in. They had those classroom windows at the top, the light was filtering through, and there's this beautiful light shining on this girl as she stands there introducing herself. She must have been, 21. I was 24. She was 20. I was 24. And she's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life.
Sure.
The most gorgeous woman, the light catching her perfectly. And of course, that was my wife, Christy. So
Wow.
not at the time, but that was. I always make the joke and say there was this beautiful girl, and right next to her was Christy, which Christy enjoys. And the truth is, it was her. She was standing there, and I just immediately I knew I was at the right place.
Yeah.
God was like, "I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to show you the future, the career that you'd have one day, and I'm going to show you the wife that you'd marry one day."
Amazing.
And it was like he'd been waiting, like a father so excited for the child's birthday, like to give me these gifts, but he couldn't until I was ready.
Wow.
And so, yeah, long story short.
Well, I'm actually, you took the class being empty as a sign of negative feedback, but up until that point, you actually had a lot of things happening in a way that it's quite obvious God was guiding you, and you had this thing inside of you, almost pushing you or pulling you at the same time. And things lined up in a powerful way, and you found two things that day.
Yeah,
your career path and your life partner, which is really, really special. Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I don't think you've ever told me that in so much detail.
No,
that's pretty cool. So that's a new for me. I'm glad I'm hearing it here exclusively.
Yeah.
No, not exclusively.
So well, to all the Seven Delon fans who think that George and Karin are still together, we are, but we didn't meet at Seven Delon.
Yeah. Sorry for julle.
Sorry for julle, yeah.
Well, that's amazing. But since you already kind of touched on it, in passing, maybe we can go back to that come to Jesus moment that you had, and maybe take us from that to, how did your relationship with God develop from that moment? You had a sort of it sounds to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like a bit of a prodigal child moment coming when the Bible says when he came to himself. We all have those moments where we're like, what am I doing? And this is not working, whatever. And you're like, maybe if I just go back, or if I go for the first time for some people. And, did you have any concept of God and Christianity? Was it only what you heard at school? How was that connection moment for you? And then how did your relationship with him develop from there?
Well, I mean, it was definitely a prodigal son situation with me, because I've been a Christian since way back, but I was maybe 9-10 years old when I really started thinking about God in a responsible way. I gave my heart to the Lord at the age of, if I'm not mistaken, at about the age of about 12. Okay. I gave my heart to Jesus.
How did that come about?
I was in a church and there was an altar call, and I was like, okay, I'm doing this. I was 12 years old, about 12 years old. I remember that I was with my cousin. We both did it together, and his mother, we were there with his mom, and she was like, what are you guys doing? When we came back, she was like, what are you guys doing? This is not a joke. You can't just go. And I was like, no.
This is real.
I really felt the need to do this,
Oh, wow.
But of course, you only know so much when you're that age, and sometimes you're swept up in the moment. Sometimes you're swept up in the culture of it. Sometimes you're not 100% sure of what you're doing. I knew I wanted to do that, but I didn't know what I was doing. I only found that out later. What I'd committed myself to, the knowledge and understanding of that only came later, and through a process of my life, as it does. Even if you're a grown up and you give your heart to Christ, that's only the beginning of your journey. It's exciting. It's an amazing moment, but that's where it starts. You don't suddenly become a brand new, evolved person. Your personhood's the same, but you now start your process and the promises that are laid out before you.
If I may, just it's maybe a little technical, maybe theological, but looking back on that moment as a 12-year-old, as much as you didn't have all the information, do you believe that was a real conversion moment?
It was, and I'll tell
That's
you
important.
why I know that.
That's important to know.
I know that because I'd had a lot of spiritual interactions in a sense that I was aware of the spiritual world quite intensely. Yeah. I had spiritual dreams. I had just a knowledge, an intrinsic knowledge of God. I didn't understand what it was. As I say, I learned about who God is after I met Him, essentially. Yeah. But I had no doubt that there is a God that I want to know Him and I want to be close to Him, and that this was the way to get to God. As I grew older, I veered away from that, as we do, from the path. And
can I just go back one more step?
Please do.
So growing up, what kind of faith base or culture were you exposed to?
Yeah. Well, I went to okay. So I had two of the more legalistic church upbringings, in the sense that I'm half Greek, half Afrikaans. Okay, so ek's 'n Griekse boertjie.
Yeah, it's quite a combo.
Dis nogal 'n lekker mengsel. So ek was by die Nederduitse Gereformeerde Kerk, the Netherlands Reformed Church for the Afrikaans side, and the Greek Orthodox Church for the Greek side.
Did you go to both?
Well, I went to both, but mostly to the Netherlands, and then for special occasions, Easters and things. My father took us to the Greek church, but.
Was it Greek Orthodox?
Greek Orthodox, yeah.
I remember going to a Greek Orthodox church once for Easter.
Yeah. One only goes once if you don't have to.
It was quite an experience. Yeah. I remember
it's a good 4 hours of holding candles and listening to ancient Greek.
It was, a lot of it went over my head, absolutely. But I remember this one thing that stood out for me, and it was for that day, everybody greeted one another by saying, "He is risen."
Christos anesti, yeah.
In Greek. And I thought, that's so beautiful. And so I started doing that. When it's Resurrection Sunday, I just say, "He's risen," before I say hello.
Yeah. Amen.
Anyway,
I do that too.
All right, so you
and the answer is yes, indeed, He is risen.
Oh, beautiful.
So I had these two really legalistic upbringings and religious, but I must be honest, for me, I didn't meet God in either one of those churches. I met Him outside of church. I met Him in the world. I met Him in places that weren't formal institutions, but in experiences. But yes, I got a Christian education from those things. And who knows, I certainly can't remember what you pick up and what you take in then, but you are made aware of.
Some kind of moral values, system that you do. Oh.
So my house wasn't a very intensely Christian home.
Okay.
In the sense that we didn't, my parents didn't preach to us, or they taught us values and principles. But it wasn't. My dad wasn't. He wasn't a overly religious man. In fact, he had some misgivings about the church, because the church treated him very. It's not a unique story, but the church was very anti-questioning, and my dad is a questioner. He questioned everything,
which is sad, because the Bible can stand up to rigorous debate, but
100%. But back then it's like you do not question anything. My dad's a questioner.
I understand that.
And he kind of gave me that too. So I love questioning things. It needs to be logical.
Yeah, but why?
If I can't ask questions, then I want to know what's going on.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. So that was your background.
Yeah.
And then you had this experience as a 12-year-old. Was it because you were invited to another kind of church environment by a friend?
I was hanging with
Okay.
my cousin in Johannesburg, and they said, let's go to their church, and so we did.
Okay.
It was a bit more of a charismatic church, so I don't think there were ever altar calls in the NG Kerk or in the Greek Orthodox Church.
Not that
it's
I
not
ever
the kind
saw.
of thing they did. So I think it was a combination of all these things, and really as a child you can imagine how confusing that is. I don't know, we can all harken back to those days and go, I wasn't really sure what was going on. You kind of go with it because you're taught, this is the sky, this is a chair, that's a table, these are, and this is Christianity. And then you go, okay.
All right.
But until you sit at the table, until you understand how this, what the sky actually is, you can take it, as fact, but until you've understood it, experienced it, immersed yourself in it, you don't really know what it is. You can accept it, but you need to experience God. And that's what I pray for my kids. We can talk about that later, but I pray for them to experience God, because I'm offloading everything I know and can, from my experiences to apologetics that I love, to all kinds of conversations that we have, but I can only give them that. They will have to experience God for themselves, and that's what I pray for daily.
It makes me almost think in a way that, you can make an analogy between what you're explaining from meeting God the first time. It's kind of overwhelming. It's amazing. There's something about this, but you don't have the full picture, and there's no relationship yet. You can kind of make the same analogy for your description of when you saw your wife for the first time. You see this beautiful woman, you're like, wow, I need to know more about that. But the relationship only came later. And
exactly.
So
and it has ups and downs. And,
of course.
You've got to commit yourself to it. The more, if you really want to get to know that person that will become your wife, you need to commit to that person.
What are you saying, Nico? That if a woman is beautiful, it's not just perfect and easy.
It's not just good enough, It only lasts for so long.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
We have to get into
This
that,
is new.
I thought your life was just easy and perfect and Maanskyn
like
and Rose.
Everyone's life, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, isn't that why I think God really put? I mean, we're made in God's image. So didn't He make earthly marriage for us to understand what ultimately He wants for us? Yeah, of course. And so,
absolutely.
And how do you? He doesn't want you. Firstly, He's not going to force you to marry Him. So anyone who forces marriage, it's not real marriage. It's not marriage. Marriage is two people committing to one another, two entities, two personalities. God has already stated His commitment to us. So He just needs us to commit to Him, to say, yes, I will marry you. Because that's what we do. We enter into marriage with Him. So what a beautiful example when you do see your wife and but then the journey only starts.
Yeah.
You still got to, firstly, you got to get her to say yes.
Which helps. Yeah.
Which does help. And she's got to say yes out of her own. She's got to say, yes, I will commit the rest of my life to you. I'm talking about Christian marriage now, of course.
Yeah.
I will commit the rest of my life to you until death do us part.
Of course.
It's beautiful. It's such a lovely analogy for God.
Can you give us the highlight reel, kind of the main moments from the moment you met Christy, you guys dating, finally realizing, listen, this is for life, and then getting married? Can you give us a montage overview?
All right,
is that possible?
I'm going to tell this. Should I text her and ask if I can? No, she'll agree that I should share this. Well, look,
okay.
So we met, and we only got married 6 years later.
All right.
So if you think about that, 6 years dating someone's a long time. So when we met, it was love at first sight for both of us.
Oh, wow.
She says so, and I know it. And she proved it to me, because later when I tried to sabotage our relationship, she held on for dear life, not because she needed me but because she knew we were meant, and she was just waiting for me to wake up, grow up, and see the light. Thank God.
I had a similar moment with my wife, so I understand somewhat of what you're saying. Thank God for them. Yeah.
So we dated for 4 years. Through those, and in those 4 years, we spent a few months together, abstaining from living as a husband and wife.
Okay.
If you get my meaning. I'm not
I
sure
do.
how raw we go on this podcast.
As raw as you're willing to go, it's not for children. So
Christy and I didn't. We slept together, but we lasted a few months before doing so, and because we wanted to really give this relationship a go, and we felt intrinsically that a few months would mean, look how special we're treating this.
Yes.
And we loved each other deeply from the get-go, and it was just amazing. But then we started living together as husband and wife, but we weren't husband and wife. And we lived together for, we bought an apartment together, we lived together, and incidentally, Christy's mom, Barbara, she kept, every now and then she'd slip in and she'd go, Nico, jy weet, julle woons, she loves me, and I love her dearly, and she was so tender, and she was like, you guys are living together like husband and wife, and I just want to say the Lord, He doesn't bless that, And I'd be like, yeah, I know more, And honestly, to be truthful, Christy and I were feeling a lot of guilt about that, and it was evident in our relationship, and at the end of the 4th year, things had gotten so bad that we were just fighting all the time. We were arguing all the time. And and you could see, if you now look back, you can see how Satan had crept in and he put the thing that God has intended to bring us closer together was the very thing that was now driving us further apart.
Wow.
And it wasn't that we were unfaithful or anything like that. It was none of that. It was a case of we were just not in where we were meant to be as a couple. And I think it's so important.
The underlying, sorry if interrupting, the underlying guilt was probably a contributing factor as well.
It was a contributing factor because you're feeling what I'm doing is wrong and it's supposed to be beautiful and I love this woman so much. Why do we feel so bad after doing something that's so beautiful, supposed to be?
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And we always were respectful to one another in that situation, that intimacy, but it didn't feel right.
Sure.
So after 4 years, her and I decided to be celibate.
Sure.
So we decided we're going to do things the right way. And we stopped being intimate together. We still lived together because there was a situation financially and we'd bought a home together and whatever. But we were going to do this right. So for a year, we were celibate. And in that year, I spent every moment I could just praying to God to help us to keep what we had. Because we were still arguing, still fighting, but it was much better now. We were getting to the grit of what it is that was the discord between us. And then near the end of that year, the one thing I was praying for was just to know. I was begging God, Father, give me a sign. You just give me a sign and I will marry her right. I was so scared of making a mistake, of making that commitment.
Sure.
She was ready.
There might be some young couples listening, and I mean the trend for even people who say they are Christians to live together before they get married is still very strong, and I think it's actually grown quite a bit.
Indeed.
So if you could,
lie, it's a trend, but the lie is,
that's what I'm asking.
Before you get married, you must live together and sleep together so that you know that your partner is your partner.
Yeah, like the lie of compatibility.
Yes.
So
and why that's a lie is, well, if you know anything about biology, if you're a man and a woman, you're compatible. It's a fact. There's
anatomy. Yeah.
You do not need to practice that. It works. Trust me.
We were made that way.
We were made that way. And so the lie is you have to check whether or not you're sensually and sexually compatible. Trust me. If you are in a loving relationship, a man and a woman, sexually things are going to work. That's how they were designed. It's going to work out perfectly. You don't have to worry or test it. You do not have to test it. God has already made it perfectly. It works perfectly. What you need to do is work on the spirit, on the connection, on the commitment. Because the responsibility that comes with a sexual relationship is one that we do not even begin to comprehend. Because it's not just physical, it's very emotional. It's very emotional. People say, oh, the women are so emotional about it, and after intimacy, the men are emotionally connected after intimacy, and then the spiritual is something we don't even begin to understand.
I think what happens is we sear our own consciences by pushing through what we know we shouldn't be doing, and then after a while it feels like it doesn't affect me. But actually all you've done is you've seared your conscience.
Amen. And culture and media promotes it and says this is how you should live, this is what you do, it's the way we do it, and so essentially, long story short, You said highlight version. I'm giving you a slightly longer version. Forgive me. But
I'm asking you about principle stuff as well. So yeah.
But essentially, what happened is, for a year we were celibate, and we prayed to God for forgiveness for breaking one of His laws, which is fornication. Sex outside of a marriage is fornication. And we were breaking that law. And He couldn't bless us. And we knew He'd put us together, and He wanted us to be together, but He wasn't going to bless us unless we lived within His parameters. I love that analogy of, a fire is such a wonderful thing. It warms you. You can cook food with it and keep you alive. Gives you spiritual blessing, gives you physical blessing, emotional blessing, sitting staring at a fire, like a kampvuurtjie, 'n vuurtjie en 'n biertjie, all those lekker things, eh? If you make a fire in the fireplace, it's great. If you make it in the fireplace in your home, it's great. But if you make a fireplace in your lounge, on the floor, in one of the bedrooms, or in the toilet, you're going to burn your house down. And it's such a powerful, beautiful analogy, because if you make a fire in the right place, it blesses you physically, emotionally, spiritually. But if you make it in the wrong place, it'll burn your house down. And it was burning our house down. And so we were celibate, and we prayed for forgiveness. And after a year, the one thing I was praying in that year was like, Lord, I don't want to hesitate about getting married. I don't want to have cold feet. That doesn't make sense to me. I want to run down that aisle. I want to not be able to wait for her to walk slowly down the aisle and smiling at everyone. I want to run her. I want to grab her and say, let's get married, woman. And that's all I wanted. I wanted to be that convinced and convicted that convinced that this is the right thing to do. Sure. And that's what I was praying for. And at the end of that year, in another long story I won't tell you now, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And I was so excited and blessed. And I thought, yes, amazing. We can get married, and now we can once again, because remember, we've been celibate for a year, and now we can engage as husband and wife in the right way. And she said, now hang on a second. I now need a year to plan the wedding.
Okay.
So it was 2 years.
Count that.
2 years.
2 years.
Of celibacy.
Ish.
2 years. And I remember just looking at my wife to be at the time's eyes as she was coming down the aisle. Firstly, I wanted to run up there and just grab her. But I remember looking at the most beautiful.
It's woman. A lot of self-discipline needed for that moment, yeah.
And I was crying. She wasn't, as is the case. And then she stood in front of me. And I just looked at this woman, and I remember standing there, and we both knew it and felt it, and we speak about it often, is we stood before God, a virgin husband and a virgin wife. Because although we actually weren't that, and God knows that we knew that, we felt like He had forgiven us for breaking that, for going celibate for 2 years, showing Him that we were serious about this, asking for forgiveness for breaking that. And then we got married, and let me tell you something. There is nothing more beautiful than intimacy between a husband and a wife after marriage. And I'm talking about a spiritual marriage where God is the mediator and also He's part of that marriage. The thing that He's given us in the form of sexual intimacy is a beautiful thing. And it's meant to bind and balance a husband and wife out, and it does. And it's more beautiful than anything you can see on any debaucherous film, on any Friends episode, on anything you've been taught and media's thrown at you. You do not understand the beauty of a sensual, intimate relationship with a husband and a wife when it's been blessed by God, when the fire has been made in the right place.
Wow. That is so beautifully put, and I can only say amen.
Amen.
And I wish that can go out to as many people as possible. I've spoken to quite a few young couples who are in our church and want to get married, and then then they go, "Will you please speak at our wedding?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but there's one condition. I need to just walk with you through pre-marriage counseling." And then they're like, "Okay." And then session
Easy
1,
peasy.
day 1, session 1. So, sleeping together? Living together? Yeah. I'm like, are you born again? Yes. Okay. How do you feel about all of that? When you compare what you're doing to God's word. Oh, no, it's fine. And then the thing I've had a few times, getting married is just a piece of paper. And then I have to take them to the word and break it down and eventually help them to get to a point where they go, oh, my word. I don't know. I didn't realize. And then I asked them, how many of your best friends all had the same pattern. Live together, like all of them. So it's about who you surround yourself with, what you're willing to do. And the thing is, doing that is feeding your flesh. And your flesh will fight to keep it going. But when your spirit is starting to convict you of something else and you start going towards that, then the shift starts happening. And you guys fought for it, and you were blessed because of it. And I totally get what you're saying, bro, about standing there going, you know, I messed up. I went against the will of God. But because of the power of forgiveness, true repentance, and God's beautiful grace and redemption power, we can stand before one another as that. And I think that's so beautiful. I mean, first prize, you know, stick with Jesus, wait for the right one, do things his way. But if you have messed up, you know, there's always grace and mercy if you are repentant.
First prize is always going to be to do it up front, because you waste so much time. I always say that, I always say that God has this plan for our lives. He's got this beautiful plan for our lives. You can call it predestiny if you wish, because people think predestiny means that that's what you're going to do. No, He has a plan. And if you stick to that plan, if you stick to the plan that God has for you, life is going to be freaking amazing. He's designed it to be amazing. He's going to allow adversity, but he's made it, it's going to be an adventure.
Plan A is great.
Plan A is great.
Yeah.
He knows, though, that we don't stick to plan A. And so we go away from what was predestined, and we go to other things, and we veer down the road. And sometimes that branch we take away from the road he has for us can take us a far way down. A lot of people really go far down those roads and get lost. But the interesting thing is, the split second, you turn around and face in the direction of God one more time. When you turn around and face Jesus, he's not down far where you left him. He's literally standing right beside you. And he's there all along, just waiting for you to turn. And when he does, you see him. He doesn't only show up after 10 years of you walking in the right direction. The minute you turn from your sin or from your sinful ways or from the life you've led that have taken you away from him, he's right there. He's like, hey, how's it going? You look, whoa, hey, jeez, I thought I was alone. He's like, I've been around here waiting for you to turn all the time.
Amazing.
Now, let me take your hand. I'll show you what I got planned. And it's amazing.
Come on.
It's always better.
I love it. So you guys have this beautiful story. I'm sure there's a lot of detail as well. And now you are both... I
just want to, before you ask that question, say, is this, am I the first one to drink out of this?
Yes. These are the new In Hindsight BOLDCAST coffee mugs. They've just come in. And, you have to drink a bold cup of coffee.
Wow. That's... Sure. That is. I feel bolder.
Come on.
Yeah.
And I know this is very cheesy, but look at that. We also have this.
Are you going all out?
Come on.
Okay, so this is not just a fly-by-night podcast. We're going full tilt.
No, this is. You got to have branding.
I'm very proud of you.
I'm still trusting God that we can have some branding over on the mics.
Let's not get too wild. I can just see where this goes.
But thank you, bro. I appreciate you.
Don't forget your question. I want to say, well done. I'm very proud of you. This is, a lot of people talk about doing things, and then others do it, and you always do it. And I'm very impressed and very proud and inspired.
Thank you.
So well done. Keep going.
That means a lot to me coming from you. Thank you so much. Yeah, once again, it comes back to the living a life by faith and obedience. And initially it was an idea, and then I prayed about it, and I felt God nudge and say, yes, this is what I want. And then it was like, okay, full tilt.
Yeah.
Once you know that God is in this, then you got to go.
Yeah.
So from experience, I now know delayed obedience is pretty much the same as disobedience. So just jump in.
Oh, I know all about delayed obedience. 100%.
Yeah. The question I have is, so you and your wife... I know there was that 4-6 year period, and then, but at that time and through your beginning stages of your marriage, you were both working actors, and you are now in this industry. You both, what I understand, I don't know Christy's detail of her story, but she also knows Jesus.
Very much so.
And you guys have this unity. Now you're in this industry, you are working. You're faced with everything the world has to offer. Fame has its own challenges in a way. The people around you in the industry don't believe the same things as you. Can you just maybe speak to us a little bit about dealing with being a Christian in the TV industry, that world, and also maybe question B would be, how do you handle fame and what comes with fame?
Well, okay, that's a
Let's start with question one. How did you handle it, and what did you learn from being in the industry as a Christian man, and how did you navigate some of those things?
Well, here's a funny story. So my first on-screen gig. So I'd done theatre up until I started, and in South Africa we didn't have film at the time anymore. Film had been decades before the last beautiful Afrikaans films were made.
Okay.
And it was something that had died out, and there wasn't really an industry. There was Igoli.
Yeah.
And then generations after that, and there were a few other shows, but Igoli was like one of the big ones. It was like Igoli was like,
it was huge,
like huge. So I remember I auditioned for a role in Igoli, and I got to play the love interest of Mary Ann Barlow's character.
Sure.
For I think it was 4 calls. So I was her boyfriend. I was her new boyfriend.
Did you have to wear a gold chain and a white shirt?
No. No, but my wife and I still laugh to this day about the scene that we had. But anyway, so my first on-screen kiss.
No, you can't do that. Like, explain the scene.
No, I'm scared people go and look for it. It's online somewhere.
It's pre-YouTube, man.
Really bad.
It's
really
pre-YouTube.
But there's this scene where I walk in and I see Mary Ann Barlow. I come to fetch her, and I think her boyfriend in the show, I can't remember what Mary Ann Barlow's character's name was, but the boyfriend.
Shocking, Nico. Shocking.
I think was Joe was the boyfriend or something. Anyway, so he opens the door and there's me standing, and I'm like, hey, I'm here to pick up Mary Ann's character name, and then she goes, oh hi, and then she's dating me to make him jealous, right? So that's kind of what happens.
Sounds like a soapy storyline.
Yeah. So Mary Ann Barlow was my first on-screen kiss.
Okay.
And so that's where it started for me. So I was only on TV for like 4 days, but I remember we were back in Pretoria, like I don't know, a few months later when it had aired, and I was walking, and we had like on weekends they had markets in Hatfield. I was walking in the Hatfield flea market, and as I was walking, people were looking at me like weird, like I haven't been looked at before, and I was like, and I was walking, and we were just walking through the market, and then these guys were looking at me, and then people were looking, and I was like, what the freak is going on? And I was actually getting a little irritated. I was like, what's going on? And I was checking.
You haven't put it together yet.
I'm checking my stuff, and eventually at one point I said to Christy, this is freaking me out.
Do I have food on my shirt?
Is there something going on that people? She goes, oh my word. It must be because of
you were
the
just in Igoli.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
It can't be. And she was like, of course it is.
Yeah, the whole country is watching. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my, and then it fell into place. And of course from there it just escalates as you do more and more things. But that was my first, I'll never forget that day. It was the weirdest day. It was so weird.
Yeah, getting recognized by strangers
for no good reason other than, and not understanding what it is and what it means, and not even enjoying it, like being a bit freaked out by it.
Okay, and that's interesting that you say that, because it also shows you that in the industry, and I also experienced this on the music side of things, there aren't many mentors who are actively trying to help newcomers into the industry, because it's such a cutthroat, dog eat dog kind of world. You might take his place, so no one's going to help you. So you would benefit so much from someone going, hey bro, your show's going out, let me just give you a heads up. You're going to be, some people are going to notice you. Don't freak out.
Yeah.
Just the little coaching would have helped.
It would have helped.
I remember, coming out of a show like Idols, and I mean, and that kind of attention, and it freaks you out. I remember walking in the mall here in Somerset with one of my good friends from school, and he was so not aware, because to him I'm just his friend.
Yeah.
So we were walking in the mall, and he would go, "Why are these people staring at you?
What's going on, bro?"
And I go, "Bro, just think." He's like, "Oh yeah, of course." So I mean but it is the weirdest feeling the first time
so
you
weird.
notice that. Yeah.
It's so weird, I'm so surprised that it took me so long to put two and two together.
It just shows your
But
humility,
it's
bro.
interesting. It's a yeah, whatever. It's such a moment of
Yeah.
okay, is that what it's like? And then years,
Things are not gonna be
decades
normal.
later, you're like, that was the last time I was anonymous.
Yeah.
Which is incidentally,
well,
anonymity is a gift.
Yeah.
Which is essentially
Crazy,
why
right?
we decided not to put our kids on screen. A lot of people wonder why, we don't put our kids, we don't show them in social media and stuff like that. We just decided, hang on a second, anonymity is it's irretrievable once it's lost.
Yeah. It's a precious thing,
It's
actually.
a precious thing. We want them to be able to decide whether or not they want to give it up. And I had this conversation with them a few days ago. They were saying, so when because it's weird for them, and so, but they understand it, but they're young, they're becoming young teenagers, and they want to know why.
In a
social
world
media.
where being famous is, lauded. So, yeah.
So anyway, so they understand it, but they don't, but they do. Anyway, the point is that you enter into this world, and to answer your question, your mind is. I don't think your mind's ever ready for it. Now, let's say this: we're blessed in South Africa that we don't have that cutthroat paparazzi culture that especially United States and Europe is burdened by.
Yeah, where it's almost like they attack you, they make your life horrible.
Yeah. And the flip side of that is we also don't have the money that they do. So it's like, oh, shame piece.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
you
wish-
guys are multi-millionaires. I mean, the guy who does my job overseas,
Multi-millionaire.
you just go sit in your mansion and we'll talk about it later in heaven.
And when they do like a magazine cover, they actually get paid.
They actually
in
get
South
paid,
Africa,
yeah.
you're like, I'm just so grateful that I'm on the cover.
Thanks for featuring
Some
me.
people get paid, but unofficially.
Yeah.
I asked them once, but I know this guy got paid. Like, no,
Not
don't,
that people
don't.
know of.
Ik snij on the internet. Yeah. You're like, oh, okay. So it's a very interesting difference. Like, it's quite massive because our industry is very small.
And that's a saving grace. So we don't
In a way. Okay.
have that intense culture where we're people see you in a mall, they're like, oh my word, or they take a pic with you, but it's they don't camp outside the restaurant and wait for you. Oh, okay, when we were doing Seven Dalan, it was kind of like
I was going to ask you now because
Seven Dalan was crazy. It was crazy. Maybe because it was this era and it was and it's never been like that since. Thankfully. But it was Seven Dalan was crazy like that. So you were places you couldn't go.
Will you please tell the story of when your character George went kind of bad?
Yeah.
And you were doing a signing at a mall.
Yeah.
Please tell that story.
Yeah. So we would do signings, all right. So you would go on a Saturday morning,
Like a
you'd
promo.
start at 8:00 in some mall somewhere, and you'd be paid pretty good, back in those days, to more than a day on your soapy. You'd be sitting there and signing for hours, and people would come and they would just gush over you, and you'd sign thousands. And my surname was Panagio.
Did you shorten
In the
it
beginning,
after that?
in the beginning it was Panagio.
I'm just P.
so my stage name I shortened to Panagio because Panagio was just too long to sign. Anyway, so you'd spend hours signing and greeting people and smiling, and so one gets really good at that. And at one point, this worm comes up to me, but he comes from the side. He doesn't even stand in the queue. He didn't want a signature. He wanted to murder me. He comes and he grabs me by the arm, but he grips me like, those farmers' hands.
Big hands,
Hy's so plaas oom.
It's like a piesangs.
Hy het nou van die plaas af gekom. Hy sê bakkie nou buite parkeer want hy het gehoor George is hier binne en hy gaan vir hom 'n paar dinge kom vertel. En hy kom toe in and he grabs me on the arm, but with a steel grip. He grips me like a father who's giving his son like the words, and he grabs me and goes, George, I'm going to say it in English, but he said it in Afrikaans. I want to tell you one thing. I used to like you. I used to think you are the best person on that whole show, but not anymore. You are wasting your life. Stop with this drunken nonsense. And he gives me a shake, like, and he walks away, and I'm like, well, dis net 'n storie. But I mean,
It's just a show.
as I was trying to tell him this,
Oh, man.
I realized there's no use in trying to explain to this guy I'm playing a character,
Wow.
because my character George he was the good guy, you know, he was kind of a hero, and he went on this little this alcohol binge because he was. Yeah, I think it was Karin, played by Christy, that he was struggling. You know, he's in his relationship with, and he turned to drink, and this woman was very unhappy about it. You know?
Oh my goodness!
And so it was. Our characters were very real to people, and they really let themselves ingeleef. They enjoyed these characters so much that these characters became real to them. I understand that. We do that with TV shows we watch. You know, it's amazing the power of media and characters. You know.
Yeah, I mean that show was airing every day.
Yeah.
And then there was an omnibus as well. So, and if you think of a TV in a house, it's like an extra person.
Yeah.
And everything that comes through that thing is in your house.
Yeah,
so
it's amazing.
it becomes,
People.
Yeah, so I mean, you have this where people greet you like they know you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And you don't know them, and then they're almost like offended. I remember.
I just make as if I know everyone else. Hey, how's it going? How's the kids? You have kids? How many you got? 2? Then I look for those indications a mentalist. I'm like, you got how's your boy?
Yeah, the micro expressions. How's this going?
Yeah.
No, it's. I mean. Still, I'm not, like my one child said to me, so Dad, when you used to be famous.
Ooh, wow.
But every now and again, you know, you still get the people who recognize you and greet you. And then when I'm with my family, my kids would go, who's that? And I go, I don't know. They just recognize me and they go, ah.
Oh, it's one of those.
Yeah. So, because they first go, do you know them? It's like, no, I don't know them. So, okay, so that's what that's like.
But it's interesting. I remember that with my kids as well, because as we were growing up, so we'd be in a restaurant, people would come to you, or we'd be somewhere, they want a photo. And, you know, when they're young, they're like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, for them, that's like, you know, weird things that grown-ups do. And then as they slowly start getting to, they're like, why did that lady want a picture with you? Because they're clicking, hang on a second. They're thinking outside of their initial... I want food and I want to play with the toy thing, and they're starting to look at the world around them going, it's weird that people come to my dad and take photos with him and with my mom.
This is not happening to other dads.
What's going on here? Yeah. So
when they pick it up for the first time, it's very interesting.
So it's an interesting world to move into unknowingly, not knowing, as you said, with no sort of indication or anyone giving you the preparation for what to expect and how to approach it. And one thing I tell youngsters when they come to me now, and I say to them, you know, keep your feet firmly rooted in where you come from, your foundation, hopefully your faith, and your head in the clouds, you know, because I love that about our industry. We're dreamers, man. Yeah. We're visionaries and dreamers and creators.
You should never lose that.
We want our heads to be in the clouds. We want to play characters and just imagine. And we it's something that we passionately love doing, you know, creating, and that's our job. That's what we do. We're creatives. We tell stories about the world that are very serious, that need to be unpacked in a way that makes it palatable for people, you know, and it's a very important job, you know, and I take it seriously, but you need to be rooted in something solid to be able to tell those stories, to give that information, to paint those pictures, in a truthful way. And if you're not, well, I mean, we know how it goes. If you stand for nothing, you fall for anything, and that's really, it's such a big responsibility, right?
So. If I hear correctly, would you say to, you know, young actors who want to take this up a notch, talent is like one level, but to have a longevity and a good career, it's good to, and also I think you'll be a more authentic actor if you are well rooted. Is that, am I hearing you right?
I think that's
talent will take you thus far, but then you need something to root you, right?
Well, you know, I always liken it to a boat on a lake. You know, it's you know, the boat is there to carry you. All right. So if that boat is anchored, you know, and you want to go to sleep tonight, then you're going to wake up in the same place tomorrow whilst you're closed your eyes and you're not in control of where the boat goes. When you're awake, you're rowing in the direction you want to go. But when you're asleep, that boat, needs to stay where it is. You want to wake up tomorrow and it's in the same place. If you don't anchor that boat, it's going to drift to who knows where. And if the wind comes up, it might push you that way. And if there's a storm, it might push you that way. And you never know where you are. You never know where you're waking up tomorrow.
That's good.
And then you're lost. Eventually, you find yourself completely, firstly, off course. So your destination, you don't even know how to get there. Never mind, you forget where it was. And I think it's very important to remain rooted. And then you decide where you want to go. Make sure you're in control. And when you're not looking, when you're asleep, that boat stays anchored. And there are many stages in the industry where you don't know what's going on when you're asleep, and you need to then be able to trust that tomorrow morning when you wake up, you're going to be in the same place or in the right place where you know that you want to be. And then from there you can, with God, plot your course to the next destination. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so what I tell youngsters who are entering into this industry, who ask me about it, any creatives, whether it's acting or music or whatever it is that you're going to feel all the time that you should do everything that comes your way because you've got to kind of claw your way to a place where you can choose. And to a large degree, that's true. You've got to do all kinds of things, take all kinds of gigs, work all kinds of hours, many years before it starts paying off, before you can start choosing what you do. But from the start, you need to know that you're anchored when you're not looking. And that anchor needs to be in what you believe and what your parents taught you and what you know to be right. And you need to be able to say when something comes along that just pushes you, that asks you to let that anchor go. Don't worry. Come on. Who knows where this goes? Hey, life's an adventure. And you're like, okay, let me just do this thing. It's not what I want to do. It's not the direction I want to go in.
It's not who I am.
It's not who I am, but let me do this because I one day I can choose. The problem with that is you keep going a bit further and further and further and further away from who you want to be. So the easiest, the best way is to have your standards set in place right from the get-go. And trust and have faith that no matter what comes along, and you're going to have to say no. I've said no more times than I've said yes to gigs.
Sure.
And great ones. Ones that maybe would have put me in a different place that I am today. Who cares? What's important is that I know that if I did that gig, no matter what greatness could come from that in the industry, it would wither in the gaze of my Lord when he looks at me and says, really? And no matter what I gave up because I said no, it would pale in comparison to the wonderful thing that God would have for me.
Sure.
For saying no. I much rather want what he has planned than what some producer has planned. And I've had conversations with amazing producers internationally saying, I want you to come and play a role in my horror movie with these demons and then this. And I'm like, bro, I just thank you so much for asking that of me and considering me. But I can't play that role. Sure. Especially if the hero in the end is some sorceress who kills the demon. I'm like, I'm sorry, it just doesn't, it's not truth.
You have lines for yourself.
You know what I'm saying?
For what to say yes and to say no to.
And sexuality as well, There's so much that you can lose by giving up, but by showing people that that's okay.
Yeah.
I think we have a huge responsibility in what we play and what we do. I, as a grown-up, watch certain shows and then it hits me so hard. It's a visceral punch when you're watching this really great storyline and suddenly there's a sexual act between two people that you don't need to see.
Yeah, it's and unnecessary graphic.
It's just not needed, man. There are very few artistic instances where it's beautiful and it's part of it and you understand why it's there. For the rest of the time, it's just gratuitous and it does something to us. I think it's very important that as actors, musicians, we know that there must be something that we keep your feet rooted firmly in your principles and your faith. And it's hard. And you will mess up. I have. And afterwards, the feelings that I've had afterwards, and I'm like, I don't want to do that again.
Sure.
It didn't feel right. I don't care what I get from this. It's not going to be good enough.
Yeah. It's deciding where's that line that now I'm selling my soul.
Yeah.
And before that, I'm being creative. I'm doing what God has made me to do, but there's a line. Yeah. And it must be hard because, I mean, it does seem, when you look at the industry as a whole, film, TV, especially now, with stuff on streaming, that, you know, it's about pushing the envelope, trying to be more gratuitous, more this, more that. Why? To keep the attention of a distracted audience.
Well, that's
and now
that speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Does,
that in order to give credibility to your show, you have to put in elements that you know only grips a certain type of audience member who's watching other stuff at night when the lights go out anyways. I don't want that audience.
Yeah.
I don't want an audience who's turned on by that. I want someone who wants to watch good story, good drama, good acting, good comedy. You know, comedy doesn't need to be dirty and sexual to be good. In fact, the best comedy is above the belt.
Yeah.
It really is.
Because I remember it's the cleverest.
It's the cleverest. Christian and I went to Vegas. We were in Vegas one year. When we were young, we traveled a lot. We traveled together, and we went to America. Went to New York and San Francisco, and we hired a car there. And we drove all the way. It was such a great experience because Christy's a travel planner extraordinaire.
Oh my word! Yes,
you know. So she had our trip planned. So we went to New York and we were in the...
Okay, so she's been doing this since you guys were...
she's always planned.
So it's not a new thing.
No. And we buy plane tickets before we buy couches and cars, you know.
Amazing.
So
anyways, you're playing the Vegas trip,
Anyway, so we fly from New York to San Francisco, and we go and see San Francisco, and she was a huge fan of Full House, so she wanted to go and see the Full House.
Cool.
So we went there, and San Francisco was amazing, and we went in winter. Anyway, so we'd rented, online. If you rent online, it's much cheaper. So she managed, even back then, 20 years ago, to rent a car for us. So we go to the garage underground where this car is, and it's this massive freaking Chevy truck.
Cool.
Huge. I'm like,
nice.
This is killer. We're gonna have, and I'm like, where are we gonna park this thing? It like takes up 2 freaking parkings, and eventually we're like, no, geez, this thing's too big. It's just too big. So the guy says, well, the only other thing he has is this little cabbie, and it was one of those PT Cruisers. Do you remember those? Not the prettiest car, but it was like this weird, cute, like top-lit, cabriolet car.
Okay.
And we drove in this cabbie with beanies on and the jackets we just bought from G-Star on sale. And we drove across the San Francisco Bay Bridge in this car with the heat on full tilt with the roof off. It was just freaking amazing.
What a memory.
It was such a beautiful memory.
That's awesome.
So we drove through Sausalito, which is this beautiful area, and then we went all the way down the coastline to LA. But we then eventually we were in Vegas as well, and we're not gamblers or anything like that. We went for the spectacle of it and to go and experience it. And I remember we went to this comedy stand-up show one night, and that was one of the things we wanted to do because we love comedy, and we were sitting in the show, and this guy came up, and I still remember him. He was bald-headed because he just recovered from cancer, and he started doing his number, and he was brilliant. He was the funniest person we've ever seen, and to this day I do not remember his name. I don't know who he was. This bald comedian who had just recovered from cancer. If ever anyone knows who this is, please let me know. I don't have to follow his stuff. He was so brilliant, and he was so above the belt. There wasn't a sexual or a harsh joke at all. It was just clever comedy, and it was so amazing to us. We really enjoyed seeing that. And we were very young, and seeing that made you realize, it doesn't have to be.
It's possible.
It's possible. Yeah,
that's encouraging, man.
Yeah.
So, there's so many questions I have about the industry, but I'd like to move on to something else. But before we do that, I just feel it would be so cool to if you can have one more or maybe 2 or 3 words of advice for young actors, young creatives in this industry. I'm sure the questions are, how do I make it? I get that a lot as well for the music industry. Or what do I need to have in place? I think the main thing you said now about being rooted is very important. What other practical advice would you have for South African actors at this time with the industry that it is? What should they be prepping for, ready for? What's practical advice, you know, for young actors in the season they're in?
Well, that's almost easy in the sense that it's so basic, but it's so unknown, and you learn this later if no one tells you. As you said, there aren't people to really just prepare young people for this industry.
Mentor away.
Yeah, mentor away. So really for me, what's very important is that you ask yourself whether you want to be famous or whether you want to be an artist.
That's good.
Because if you want to be famous, and that's why you're doing it, because you saw someone and you love the idea of fame, and you just want to be recognized and sign autographs and take photographs, this industry will chew you up and spit you out. Because what keeps you in the game, because it's a rough game, it's a tough game, is not being famous or being recognized. In fact, that's something that you can come to regret a lot later. What keeps you in the game is your love for the game. If you're not passionate about your art, whether it be acting, singing, dancing, creating, writing, whatever it is, if you're not passionate about it, you're not going to have the driving force you need to take you through the tough times. Because it can take a decade, if not more, before you actually start making a living from this. And so that's the number one. Number two, understand business. In fact, I tell people before they go and study an art degree, get a BCom.
That's good.
Then go study whatever art you want to after. No, but I want to be an artist. Listen, if you're an artist and you want to make a living, your art, whatever it is, whether it's music, whatever, is going to be sold.
Yeah, it's your product.
If you're not doing the selling, if you're not the businessman running your business, someone else is, and you're just going to be the artist. So if you want to make a living, if you want longevity in this business, become your own manager, your own businessman, manage your future, plan for yourself, and own as much as you can of what you do. That's awesome. Understandably, that only comes later, but learn how to own at a young age.
Yeah.
Make your own stuff. People think, I want to be an actor, and that's all I'm going to do. I make less money being an actor than I do from all the other things that I do.
Wow.
I make less money as an actor than everything. In fact, I get paid as a speaker oftentimes more than an entire month on any set in a local production in South Africa.
That's wrong.
In 2 hours.
I hear you. Yeah.
And the point of the matter is that the corporate world sees the value of that credibility that you bring as a brand. So understand that you're a brand. What is your brand?
But if you didn't do the movies, you wouldn't
yeah.
get the MC job. Yeah.
Which
of course.
TV shows?
No, but
what
just
is your
in
brand?
principle,
exactly.
Because they saw you,
100%.
they
I
want
see what you mean. Yeah.
So the corporate wants you.
Yeah, you do the movie for peanuts, so that you can charge, proper for the.
It's hectic,
and
but
again,
it's true.
The corporates understand that. They understand there's value to the brand, and they want to associate with that. So
it's business
build
for them.
the brand and make sure that you have something that you're proud of, and don't mess with it. Don't bring stuff into it that doesn't belong there. My social pages, everything I do, I'm very careful about what I allow in there, because when I put something out there, I want people to know that I've experienced it, I've tried it, I really stand behind this. I'm not just selling a pair of Crocs. Yeah.
You're selling Crocs?
Well, that's the point, is I'm not. But the point I'm trying to make is that it's important to take yourself seriously for the art that you have. So make sure that you have those points before you enter this. I want to do this. I must remain rooted in what I believe. I must understand business, and I must build a brand, because the brand is what is going to stand the test of time, that's going to carry you, and that's going to bring people to you. You build a brand that people can trust, that they know when I approach this person, that's what I'm getting. If I want to do this and I need someone who represents that, I'm going to go there, or there. And that's what it's a business. You're a brand. You're a product. It's not a bad thing.
So
others see it like that. So Why
Yeah.
don't we? Like, I'm
Come
an
on.
artist. I am not
yeah.
a product. I'm not a brand. You're a freaking brand.
Yeah.
And if you don't see it, someone else is seeing it. Listen, the producers of the movie, show, TV, whatever they're going,
Exactly.
I need products.
Yeah.
So be
What's
a
going to
product.
work for this? Yeah. What product do I need in this movie to make it work?
100%.
So when is the Nico Panagio masterclass starting? Training actors, bro.
It's only one of the list of thousands of things that still need to be done.
Are you writing a book?
Oh yeah, very much so.
Of course, yeah. No, you should. I think you've got some great wisdom to share, and people can benefit from that. I've seen similar principles. I see what I'm hearing from you, similar principles in the music industry.
Very much the same.
One of the things that I would get a lot is someone saying, I recorded the CD. And then I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that means nothing. But okay, then you go, well done. And then they say, it's got country and R&B and gospel.
It's a fusion.
And
It's a fusion.
Afrikaans. And I'm like, that's never going to work because you don't know who you are.
Yeah.
So how will the audience know who you are? One of the guys in the industry I used to work with, he would call it a Licorice All Sorts album. A Licorice All Sorts album doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean in acting, you get the guys who can do multiple types of, but even like a Johnny Depp who's done a wide variety. He's known for doing a wide variety.
Well, he's known as a character actor.
Yes.
So that's his brand.
That's his thing.
You can put him in, and he can be a character, and so it's still a brand. You can take him and say, I need someone who can become, like, in every possible way, this historical character. Who do I go to? You know what I mean? So it's a brand. Yeah.
On that note, just to get super practical, and then we'll step off, but what is your brand that you've defined?
Well, that's a good question. So for me, it's the first word that will ever and always come up to mind, and it's something that I'm personally passionate about, is adventure. So I love adventure.
Okay.
I love pushing boundaries in terms of my physical comfort. And so I love the outdoors. I love roughing it. I love going through tough physical exercise. I really enjoy that. So it makes sense that would be the sort of nucleus of my brand.
Okay.
But I'm also, very importantly, a Christian. So I love God. And without him, I wouldn't be able to adventure and be on the outdoors. In fact, it's his very creation that I'm so passionate about. So I make sure that people understand. It's in my socials. Anyone who's read a biography about me, they know that I'm a Christian, and they know that I love God, and hopefully they know that I live that way as well. So I think a lot of jobs don't come my way. Maybe people go, oh, no, the last thing we need is a Christian on our show. And I'm like, the last show I need is one who feels like that about Christians. So the point is, I think it also keeps a lot of temptation away from you.
Yeah.
Just be bold about who you are. Be bold about who you are, whatever it is. If you're not a Christian, be bold about it. Stand for it. Understand why you're not. Go and make sure that you've read the Bible and you're like, I don't believe in that Christian stuff. The point of the matter is, be bold about who you are. Make sure you know who you are and why you know it. I know why I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I know why I believe in the Bible. I've studied it. I know where it comes from. I love the philosophical, apologetic arguments about Christianity. I love talking about it. I love discourse. I can talk to anyone. I love learning about other religions, but I'm firmly rooted in what I believe, so that nothing's going to shake me. In fact, I love to hear the way other people think, so that I can understand better how to tell them about Jesus.
Amazing.
So. Yeah. One last thing I want to say is Chris Foster, when I was at Seven Delon, he was one of the actors and he was also a writer. And he said to me the one day, because I came to him with this idea for a movie. I was like, Chris, I've got this freaking amazing idea for a movie. It's like this and that. And I was like, bro, stop. Write it down. I was like, what do you mean?
That's
he said,
good.
Write it down. I was like, I don't need to write it down. I'm telling you. Because then, and he's like, until you write it down, you don't know if you have something. It's just going to be pie in the sky in your head.
That's great advice.
When you start writing it down, you start seeing what it can be, but also what it isn't yet. And then, once you've written it down, you can see whether or not it's ready to show to people. If it stands the test of being written down, then you can start telling people about it. Say, hey, look what I wrote. And so it's very important for musicians,
Especially
artists.
especially in the movie
Put it
industry,
down, yeah.
everyone will say, "Do you have a script?"
Yeah.
Like the script is like
Yeah.
the first big key.
100%.
And I mean,
And they won't read the whole thing. They'll read the first 2 pages
Yeah.
and the last 2 pages. And they'll be like, you don't have a script, buddy. Have a good life.
that makes me think of Michael Caine. He's got this. I think I watched some actor impersonating him. I think it was. I forget his name now, but he was impersonating Michael Caine, and he said, "This is how Michael Caine decides on whether he takes a part. I'll read the first 2 pages of the script and the last 2, and if my character's on both, I say yes."
That's very true. That's
So
very
that's
true.
how he decides. Anyway, so
These days you take final draft and you say how many times, what percentage of the film does the character appear in? If it's not good enough, you're like, then it's got to be so meaty.
yeah,
You know? But it's true. That's what people do is they look, they've been around the block, man. So they can see when something's superficial. So again, it comes down to those things. Believe in yourself, put in the work, know that it's going to be hard. If you want to be famous, become a TikTok star. And, you know, and then even then, if you're going to be making cakes, you better make them with passion, and it must be something you like doing, you know, because no one's going to watch if you don't. You know what I'm saying?
how important is hard work and a good work ethic and the ability to work with others on a film set or on a TV set?
It's integral. One of the first things, Pierre van Pletsen, he was a director as well as he played Obas on Sevendelaan. And a lot of my foundational teaching came from there. You know, I studied drama, but I learned acting on set. And of course, my first 5 years of full-time acting was Sevendelaan. So we learned so much there. You know, we hated it at the time. But we had 3 cameras on us at all times during the entire scene. We churned out scenes. We spent hours in those studios. You had
Hours learning lines.
hours learning lines. So
Don't forget that.
If you came to work and you didn't have your lines intact, they'd send you back and say, okay, we'll shoot the scene at the end of the day. You don't know your lines. Off you go.
Yeah.
Pierre van Pletsen would do that.
Yeah,
He'd
'cause
go
it's like-
cut. You guys don't know your lines. Go and learn them. And that we learned the hard way, that you come prepared. I have a 3-day rule. I start learning my lines at least 3 days before anything, if I have them. If I'm doing a film shoot or a TV shoot, when I present, it's ad hoc and you do it in the moment. But that's something that you hone over time. There's no lines to learn there. You're organic. But when it comes to playing a character, your lines must be so ingrained in you. So when you get to set, you're not thinking about what you're saying. It's already there. So that when it comes out, it's almost like it comes out naturally. And
then it sounds more real.
That's the sweet secret.
Yeah.
To answer your question, the professionalism you need for a set is theatre professionalism.
Okay.
When the curtain goes open, you better be on stage. No matter how sick you are, the show must go on. Everyone else is dependent on you showing up. You have to rehearse hours and hours, weeks and weeks, months on end before opening night to make it the best experience for the people who paid a ticket to come and watch that show, trusting that you're going to put something that's going to leave them feeling satisfied.
And every show, you have to bring the same
single
energy.
show.
Yeah, because it's a new audience, but it's
Exactly.
the same for you.
And so
Yeah.
what we have a lot of youngsters coming out of film school, and they think that they are just happening. They cooked at film school, they did all kinds of things, and then they come and they just think, well, now I've just landed the role, so now I've happened. No, you've just started learning when you start on your first film. So come in humbly. And on that note, last bit of advice: you don't make money just being an actor or just being a singer. You make a living out of it by writing, producing, understanding how it works. You know, look at all the things you've done, Heinz, because behind the scenes, you're active all the time, learning about what goes into making it. You don't just stand up there with a mic and a guitar and play and sing, and then that's that job done. There's so much more that goes into what makes you you. And what we do behind the scenes to try and hustle a living in this business, it's tough, man. 27 years I've been freelance now.
Yeah. What's it like to earn a salary?
I don't
We
know.
don't know.
I have no idea. You tell me. But I love that, and I love the freedom of that.
I mean, there's pros and cons, and the cons keep you on edge, and I think it actually keeps you sharp, and it makes you better at what
Makes
you're
you
doing.
creative, man. You wake up every day and think, what can I do?
Yeah.
I'm not working. It's Monday. Everyone else has gone to work. What can I do?
And there's the temptation to do nothing.
Yeah.
There's the temptation to slip into victim mentality. The problem is with the industry. The problem is with those guys. That guy stole my role.
Yeah.
No, dude. Work,
No, bro.
work. Why are you... Your advice earlier was so great. I would put it in a way that I normally not challenge, but encourage
it was great,
people.
but you're going to make it better, yeah?
No. I just want to say it the way I would say it in general. Like you had it very specific for creative, but it ties into these 4 things that helped me. Is to answer the questions: who am I? Why am I here? What is my message? And to whom is my message? Because it's identity, purpose, it's content, and it's audience. 100%. So if I know who I am, then I'll start knowing why I'm here. If I know why I'm here, then I'll know what am I supposed to share with the world. And then I'll know to who to go. And I think anyone creative, you need to know who you are.
Amen.
And know what it is that you want to achieve with the message that's there's something burning on the inside of all of us that's unique. If you find that thing, and then you find who that's for, the audience, I believe you will not just have financial success and income, but you will thrive. And I think the level to which we discover those things is the level to which we start going, man, life is awesome. And people are benefiting from what you're bringing.
Absolutely.
And I see that on your life.
And it cuts out a lot of questions, doesn't it? So,
Yeah.
so people don't wonder, who is this? They know who it is. And they either don't come to you or they do.
Yeah. And the freedom, and this is, I can say this, I think you'll agree, in our nature as creatives, we want people to like us and we want to be given credit.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the rule of thumb for all creatives.
Yeah,
and
it's our
as a
weakness.
Christian creative, that's the first thing you have to let go. You have to let that die. And for me, it was so difficult. It was so difficult. But it's also the thing that's linked to the danger of fame. Because fame is people liking you. And then you start building your identity on liking me. So I have to make stuff that they will like. And then it becomes plastic. And then you don't understand why people don't like it. It's like, what's happening? You've become plastic.
Yeah.
Why? Because you're chasing the fame, like you said, instead of the message that's really who you are and what you're supposed to be sharing. So the closer you get to the real, the more effective and the more, because what people want deep down, even though this world is very superficial, what people really want is a real authentic experience. Like you were saying, a great movie with great script, and great acting. People will go, whoa, wow.
And how hard is that to see that anymore? Because everything has become so artificial. You know, I watched, one of these massive, these massive big budget, Hollywood films recently, and it was the second version of it. The first one being 2 decades ago, when they didn't have such technology. So when you saw a crowd, when you saw an amphitheater, when you saw a battle, you knew it was actors,
real extras and actors.
You know, it was incredible, and you can imagine just it's incredible what these directors and producers and this crew and then these actors pulled off, and that, you know, together with the art that they've created on screen, you just get sucked into that, and there's a veracity to that. There's a reality to that leaves you in awe. Now, the second one, I looked at it. It was much more, spectacular, but it lacked veracity. It lacked real.
Interesting.
I could see that everything was AI. It was fake. They did it. What took
AI or CGI?
3 weeks.
Maybe AI.
Both.
Both, yeah.
What took 3 weeks to shoot was an hour maybe of production time.
Okay. So
And
they're
you could
trying
see
to,
that.
you can feel it and see it.
And it's not real. And there's something missing. And I remember when Kindles first came out, ebooks, I thought, oh my word, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I love books. I love reading, but I could never carry all my books with me. I always had and I love thick books, like Ken Follett and Wilbur Smith. And so I love these really thick books. And so it became quite a weight to carry around. And so when ebooks came out, I was like, oh my word, I can carry like 2,000 books on my Bible and this and that. And so I was one of the first people to buy into that, And then after a while, I thought, gosh, that's the end. It's the end of books. It's the end of libraries. It's the end of bookshops. And wow, I'm sorry, it's over. It wasn't a year of reading every book I could that I started missing the feel of a real book in my hand.
The smell.
Also, just the subconscious things of of subconsciously knowing where I am in the book by the thickness that's left or the thickness that's been covered, and almost a feeling of success or progress. As when you pick up that book.
That's interesting.
And just turning the pages, the subconscious pleasure, joy, feeling experience, user experience, if you will, of turning a page is gone. No matter how good that digital gets, it will never be that.
Sure.
And now, I might start a book in Kindle, but if I like it, I buy the real thing because I want that hard copy. And so I think that's the same with AI. Everyone's worried about AGI and AI and ASI, whatever the heck other I they
all the
come
letters.
along with, all the letters. But I don't think you can ever replace real human, pure human. And there's going to be a desire, want for it. People are going to flock back to what's real. I want to see real humans acting. I'm tired of seeing all these perfect, AI created podcasters, singers, musicians. I mean, music now. You just tell them to make the song, sing it in a P. Diddy style.
That's very
with,
scary.
A Beyonce flair, and there it goes. 2 minutes later, you got this track.
Yeah.
But something's missing, right?
Yeah.
And even if you don't pick it up on the surface subconsciously, you don't feel it anymore.
Yeah. A lot of people are using this one specific AI voice for all their voiceovers and on social media, and it's like, I can't even listen to it anymore. Yeah. Like, I know it's not real.
Well, that's not AI. It's James Earl Jones. And no, I'm kidding. You're right. Right.
And it's something about your soul just doesn't.
Something's
click.
Missing, man.
And I want to believe. Maybe I'm just old school, but I want to believe that there'll always be a space for real, and we need to keep creating that. We must be careful not to fall.
I teach our children
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
See, our kids are growing up in a world where the future is AI. I'm saying the future is the disenchantment with AI.
Yeah.
And that they must be ready for when that moment comes.
It will come.
Because they will be real.
Yeah.
They will be the root that people turn to and go, oh my word, you can write a story without ChatGPT or Grok or whatever the hell else is going to be there.
You actually understand grammar? Wow.
You understand, punctuation and storytelling and there's something about you that's so organic and real and natural and I'm a human.
It's going to be that thing. Yeah, wow. So talking about children, you guys have an incredible story. Moving on from marriage, career, to being a family.
Yeah.
Incredible story. We don't have time for the whole story. That can be a whole podcast
Told
on
it
its
many
own.
Times,
I can refer people to your session you did at our men's conference last year on our YouTube channel. They can listen to the beautiful story. But for the purposes of this talk, maybe share your brief version of the testimony of you guys wanting to have children, not being able to, and eventually making the move to adopt, and the powerful, beautiful thing that happened in that process.
Sure. Okay. Well, then that's a long story.
Well, let's go.
I'll try and tighten it. No. So essentially, we always knew we wanted to have children. So when we got to doing so, we found out that it's not so easy. You worry.
you think
worry.
It's easy,
in your younger years, you're married and you're like, we don't want children now. We want to travel. I want to travel. And so you try and take precautions and you do all kinds of things not to fall pregnant. And then one day when you do want to fall pregnant, you realize it's not that easy. Or at the very least, it's a blessing every time.
Yeah.
And it's so important for me to say this from the get-go. Like every pregnancy is a blessing and a privilege, and
absolutely,
it's so beautiful. It is,
life is precious.
Life is precious, and we don't know why, but we know it. And how you know that is try and kill anyone and see how they react. Okay, for some reason, even people who want to die,
they want to live,
are going to fight for their lives. Why? Because life is precious.
Sure.
And so, it stands to reason that the beginning of life is precious. We believe life begins at conception.
Amen.
We struggled to conceive, and we tried a number of things. We never did any. You can do AI, which is artificial insemination, not artificial intelligence, where they take a sample of the. That freaked you out, eh?
Sorry.
You can do it.
Let me take another sip.
No problem. This vodka is good, by the way. Is this BOLDCAST vodka as well? Shh. It's water. It's water. So essentially, we So we wanted to fall pregnant when we were ready, and we tried, and we realized it's not as easy to do. And we tried a couple of things. We tried. Okay, well, many
that looked like you
old
tried
wives,
weed.
Yeah, we
Don't try
tried
weed.
Many old wives' tales. Weed wasn't
Yes,
one of them.
no.
Different positions, different ways, things to
Okay.
do, different times, different
Gravity.
Tried it all, gravity, all of that weird.
Maybe if you hang from your feet from the
Yeah,
roof.
yeah. Tried that too. None of that stuff worked.
Okay, sure.
And we tried for a couple of years. We realized there's something wrong here. It really hurt. It really hurt every single month when you realize that you're not pregnant, when you're trying hard, and all you want to do is start a family. And your friends are starting families, and they're having babies, and they're having their second baby, and you just feel like there's this massive part of your life missing. And I always liken it to, when you read a book. Imagine reading this incredible book, and you get to like the really interesting, gritty part, and it's in the middle. It's the fun and games part of the movie, we call it, where things really get amazing, interesting, and it's the everyone living their best life now. That's the children part, And imagine you read the book, and when you get to the start of that part, you skip it and you go to the last chapter, You're skipping this massive part of the story.
It's missing.
If you don't have children, or if you, if you choose not to, and you choose to not have that part, I feel like you'll miss that massive part of the story. You'll still have your story; it'll still be a great book, but there's a massive part missing. So we felt that in Afrikaans sê ons daar's 'n leemte, there's an emptiness, there's a need, that nothing can fill but a child. Anyway, so. Long story short, we tried artificial insemination. We didn't want to do in vitro or anything like that. We didn't get to that point. We tried 3 artificial inseminations. It's quite an interesting process. I don't know if you want me to delve into that. I can, but we'll maybe get to that after this. But the point is that it didn't work. The last thing we tried was going on holiday to Greece, and we went for over a month. So when we left.
Just to relax
to relax, and on the last day of our holiday, we, because of what happens monthly, we realized that Christy wasn't pregnant, and we were the 2 saddest people you've ever seen sitting on a beach in Santorini with an ice bucket between them with 2 ice cold Mythos beers in there. Beautiful, perfect Greek island day, and we're crying because even that perfect idyllic setting could not sufficiently cover the hole we had in our hearts, because we wanted a child, we wanted children, and it was so hard, it was so tough. And when we got back, the long and the short of it is 4 years prior. So it was 2 years that we tried to fall pregnant. When we started trying to fall pregnant, I was on the mountain. I'd gone for a mountain bike ride, and it was a year into it, and we hadn't fallen pregnant. I was praying. I was on the mountain. I said, God, we want to have children so badly. I will promise you'll raise them Christian. We'll tell them everything about you. Please, God, please, can we have children? I don't know why we're struggling, but I'm begging you. And I just heard that still small voice in my head. It wasn't, the heavens opening up. It was intrinsically here. I knew, I felt it wasn't me. I felt God saying to me, first you must adopt. And I was like, wow. And I knew that it wasn't from me, because when I came off the mountain, I said to Christy, the craziest thing just happened. And I explained it to her, and she was like, that was definite, because she knew I was freaked out, and she could see it. She was like, wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's interesting. And we both were like, man, isn't that crazy, man? That's so crazy. It's so amazing. Anyway, what are we going to do next to try and fall pregnant? And so we were like, it's a great idea, but, we're first going to do things our way.
Okay.
4 years later, we're still not pregnant.
4 years.
Wow. We're up on a mountain. We went up to Table Mountain. Christy's sister was visiting, and we were up on Table Mountain. We're taking them to go and, look at the view and stuff. And it was the 3rd time we'd done AI, artificial insemination. And then you go and you give them a sample, and then they place the sample within the body close to the egg, so it's still a natural process. And then they let you know whether or not it's taken when they do blood tests a little bit later. I can't even remember how exactly this process works. All I know is you wait for the phone call from the nurse to tell you, yes, you're pregnant, no, you're not. And this was the 3rd time. And everyone had dreams. People had been calling us that hadn't seen us for years and said, I've dreamt that you're pregnant.
Wow.
we had dreams. We were convinced this was it. God is finally coming through for us.
Sure.
And we were so excited because we knew the phone call's coming at any time. And we were on the mountain when the phone rings and I see the name there of the clinic, of the hospital. And I'm like, oh, what a perfect place. Table Mountain, bro.
Yeah, and you're with family.
I'm like, with family,
Can
this is
share
going
it.
to be the celebration of our lives. And I remember taking the phone and clicking it and answering it. And there's something interesting about humans. We have such an amazing subconscious awareness that before she even spoke, in the breath of her voice,
You know.
I knew it was a negative. I knew it by the way she exhaled or
Sure.
inhaled before she spoke. And before she said my name and even said who she was, I already knew. And I felt like I was falling, just falling. As even before the words came out of her mouth, I was falling and falling, and I was falling to obliteration. I knew that I wasn't going to make this. Like I knew I couldn't survive this. I knew my wife couldn't. And up until this point, I'd been carrying her as a husband should. Every time she realized she wasn't pregnant and she cried, sobbed, and I held her, holding my tears back so I can be strong for her, you know. And I remember she stood next to me because I'd called her over and she could see. And I said, yes, okay. Thank you. And the woman said, I'm sorry, Mr. Panagio. I'm sorry. It didn't work. You're not pregnant. And I was like, okay, cool. And sorry. And I put that phone down. I remember I was just falling. I closed my eyes and Christy was rubbing my back. And she's this time, she's the one that she saw that, okay, he's falling. I need to hold him. I remember sitting down and I remember clenching and screaming inside. My soul was screaming. I was so angry. I was sitting there dead quiet, but in my heart I was screaming at God, you know. I was so angry. And a friend of mine had recently had an abortion.
Yeah.
It ended our friendship for a while. I'm so happy to say that that's not the case anymore. But I was so angry that this man who didn't want a child aborted his child.
Yeah.
I would have taken his child. We would have taken his child.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, God, why? Why do you give other people children who don't want them?
Yeah.
And here I am, a Christian man who promises you at the cost of my life that I will raise Christian children. I will teach them all about you. And I said to him in the exact words, I said, God, don't you want my children? And I was begging for an answer. And again, I heard that still small voice that I'd heard years before. And he said to me, and beyond a shadow of a doubt, this wasn't my words, he said, in answer to my question, I said, God, don't you want my children? All I heard was, don't you want mine? And I was shattered. But I tell you what, I stopped falling. In that moment, everything stopped. It's almost like he caught me in that drop. He caught my spirit, my soul. He lifted me up.
Yeah.
I looked at Christy and I said, we have to adopt. And she looked at me and she said, yeah. And I'm sure I'm romanticizing that moment so much more, but that's what I remember it like. It was this beautiful moment we just knew. And you know what's interesting, she reminded me of this 9 months after we sat on the beach in Greece crying about not having children. Eva became our daughter through adoption.
What?
9 months. It was incredible. And it was so amazing that 2 years later when we wanted to start a family, to have a second child, because we always knew we wanted to, we didn't even try. We looked at each other and said, why? Why go through? Because the doctor said, for all intents and purposes, you guys can fall pregnant. You know, you've got the physicality, we've tested you, everything can work. But we just knew that wasn't our route.
Sure.
God wanted us to adopt. And you know, my message to people out there who can't conceive, you know, there are many ways to have a family. Just consider for a moment the fact that there are many children who don't have parents. We have a huge problem in this world, not just in South Africa.
Oh.
God is amazing how he fixes what's broken in the world with people who choose to listen to his solutions. If every couple that can't conceive would just adopt 1, 2, 4 children, imagine what an impact that would have on the orphan children in this world. It would make a massive difference. So consider that maybe your purpose was not to have children from your body, but to have spiritual children, not your children. Essentially, yes, your children.
Not biologically.
Not biologically,
Yeah.
but God's children. Because every child is God's child. Even the ones that are born in your womb are a blessing by Him for you. You don't make that child. God makes the child in your body. You don't make the child. But you, and that's the thing we always say, it's easy to be a parent of a child biologically. But to be a mother and a father, that takes dedication. That takes a lifetime. And even biological parents aren't mothers and fathers. And you've got to understand that. And when we realized that, we were just... And I mean, you know my girls, you know them well.
Beautiful.
Within hours, they become your flesh and blood.
Talk to us about the power of adoption.
Yeah, man. You know what's really beautiful about adoption is when you're an adoptive parent, you try and look for ways, because they told us from the beginning, tell them that they're adopted, so that it's never a shock. It mustn't be something that they learn later, and explain it to them. Let them understand it. One of the beautiful ways I found to tell them what's great about adoption, I said, you know, we must remember that there are many ways to have a family and all of those things. But you know, one thing that was really beautiful to tell them was, do you know that Jesus Christ was adopted?
Beautiful.
And they're like, what? And I tell people this to this day. And I think people listening right now are going, whoa.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
This is so
I'm
good.
Like, do you know that Jesus Christ was adopted by Joseph? Joseph is not Jesus' biological parent. You know that. The Holy Spirit is. Mary was the vessel, and Christ was born into this world and adopted by Joseph into his family, adopted into the line of David, many would say, if you argue where Joseph's line of David comes from. It's fascinating to just unpack that. What's beautiful is that Joseph took him as his own son. Remember, the angel came to Joseph and said, do not divorce her, marry her, and know that this is Emmanuel, this is God that's with us, this child is from God. And he was going to honor her and quietly, you know, break off their engagement. And the angel said, no, you can marry her. And he adopted that child, raised him as his own. And we don't hear much about Joseph in the Bible, but I think we know the most important thing about him. He said, yes, God, I want your children. I want your child. I will be the father. I will marry her. And so Jesus was adopted. So how cool to know that one of the most famous human and our God and Father and our Lord was adopted.
Yeah.
And so it's such a beautiful story, because that then relates to the fact that every believer, anyone who comes from any culture, any tribe, wherever you are, the day you say yes to Jesus Christ, the day you say, yes, I believe, I accept what you did on the cross, that moment you become adopted into his family, his forever family. You become one. We are grafted into that chosen tribe. And that's beautiful. We are adopted. Adoption is God's heart. And
So
it's
good.
prevalent throughout the Bible. There are so many stories where very, very prominent figures were adopted. Moses, adopted.
Yeah.
You know? It's beautiful. Even Joseph was adopted into his place of he became part of the family. It was the second most prominent
He wasn't
position.
an Egyptian, but he was taken into second position.
as
yeah.
if adopted. You know, there's so many. If you just go study adoption in the Bible, it'll
Powerful.
blow your mind. It's God's heart.
Yeah, I love it. And you know, it says in Romans so beautifully that, you know, we, by the spirit of adoption, we cry, Abba, Father. And so there's a spirit of adoption, and it's so beautiful that it's on you and your wife's lives. And I mean, it took such a long time for that process, because it's such a big decision. But now 2 girls' lives are forever changed. And your lives.
2 parents' lives.
Forever
People always say to me,
changed.
"Oh, you guys, you've done such an amazing thing. You've really done such an." I'm like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
When you want to be a parent and
Sure.
you get those adopted kids, it's them that have done an amazing thing for you. And I thank my girls to this day. I say to Shay, I said, my love, thank you, my sweetheart. Thank you for choosing me. She's like, Dad, I didn't choose you. I said, oh, baby, I believe on some level. You said to Jesus, yeah, I'll go with them.
Yeah, I choose them.
I choose them. And he put your spirit in that little body and directed your path to us. And Eva as well. You know, we thank them all the time that we can be their parents because they've blessed us. They've blessed us. And I just want to encourage people out there, don't think God has forgotten you, or that he doesn't care about you, or that he's blessing your friends or your family and you're not blessed, you're cursed, or that you've done something wrong. You haven't. You've just been chosen. He believes that you are chosen and you are able to adopt his children. Yeah. And what's beautiful, what God does is when you choose his path, your desires, your wants are fulfilled in ways you could never have done on your own. Your family that you envisioned for yourself could never. We would never go back and change it.
Yeah.
When we had the opportunity to try and actually, we said, no, we're going to adopt our second child. We did. Shay, we couldn't wait to get Shay.
Yeah.
You know?
What I love about this and some of the previous things you said is there's this base principle of obedience is greater than sacrifice. Yeah. And that's something that always, I struggle to understand what that means, but it means that when you are obedient and follow God's way, that which you think you are sacrificing, which you wanted, the thing that God puts in the place of that is so much better and more powerful than you can ever have imagined. And I heard it in what you said about, you know, being in the industry, and I'm hearing it now, that you follow his heart for you because, you know, he wrote the manual on life and on your life. He knows the best. So that's such a beautiful story, man. I love it.
Thank you for asking about it. I know you've heard it 1,000 times.
No, not 1,000.
But we always say if there's any opportunity, we want to tell that story because I've had so many people come to me and say, "Man, I read it or I heard it, and we adopted."
It's life changing.
That's just a blessing if we can tell more people about it. You know?
Oh, sorry, I missed that for a moment. So some people have adopted because they were inspired by your story. That's awesome.
Oh, many, I can't tell you how many people have come up to Christy and me respectively and said, we adopted, we read your story in a magazine or heard it on a thing and we adopted.
Wow.
And we're going, wow, God uses everyone to bless others and everyone. You know, you just got to be willing to show up and then he uses your story to change other lives, you know. And that's a blessing.
I love how he took what you thought was going to be a mountaintop experience, turned into a valley experience while on a mountaintop, and in the same moment changed it back to a mountaintop moment. Like that's incredible.
I always think if an angel had come and whispered in my ear and said, "Hey, I want to tell you what's going to happen in like 9 months' time. I want to tell you what's going to happen. I want to tell you, like I want to show you your daughters when they're doing gymnastics, and when Eva's standing on the podium, she's got a gold medal. You know, when Shay's doing silk hanging from the roof, doing the most incredible gymnastics.
Wow.
When they're swimming when they're surfing with you. Yeah. Oh my God! The other day I was on the back line with my girls on surfboards. We're waiting for the set to come in, and I look and I'm like, I got goosebumps. Look at that.
That's amazing.
I'm like, oh my God, all my dreams have been made real. Because they're adventurous. They love adventure.
Come on.
They've traveled with us to Samoa and the Philippines. They come with us to Survivor. They love adventure.
Yeah.
If an angel had whispered that in my ear, I was like, I would have been like, let's go. Hey, sorry, ma'am, I can't talk to your clinic. Have a good life. God bless you. Thanks for all the help. Thank you, bye. Let's go.
Yeah.
I would be like that.
Sure.
So I want to encourage people, be like that. You know, that's a plan. That's a plan. Just go
so
for it.
Good. Oh, man. Praise God. That's a beautiful story. But even before you had your own children, you had a passion for children in general.
Yeah.
And you've been involved with an organization called Missing Children.
Yeah.
And you've been part of the fight against human trafficking. And, you know, the girls that you adopted, who knows where their lives would have ended up if they weren't adopted. But there's many who are not, you know, that lucky, not that blessed. I'm making a big gear shift now with our conversation, but I would like to get this into the conversation because I know you're passionate about this as well. Because even before you had children, you were passionate about children in general, and you were involved with, Missing Children SA. When the whole movie came out about human trafficking. And before that, even I know you were involved, and you've got a passion to see your children protected. Maybe share with us, why did you get involved? What are the realities in South Africa that we should know about, and how can people get involved or help and be part of the solution?
Yeah. Well, listen, there's I think, and I've pondered this many times, why this was always on my heart, even before we had children. When I started at Sevendalon, actually, and when you start having a presence in the industry, and you draw publicity, you realize that you can use it, and many people have done so. Most of us have some sort of charity that we support, etc. 2 girls went missing way back then, and
in Cape Town area?
In Cape Town and Pretoria.
Okay.
And a Facebook page was started to support them, or to find them, to help find them, to ask people if they knew anything. And I remember sending them a message saying, listen, can I help in any way? And they were like, well, listen, if you could just talk about it and just get people to
get the word out.
Just get the word out. So I started getting involved that way with Missing Children in South Africa, which was really just a Facebook page.
Okay.
And then after this case and after that had happened, I realized that there's this need to help find kids, because it's not something that was happening a lot back then, or that we were aware of. It was happening a lot, but we weren't aware of it. I certainly wasn't.
Sure.
And so I asked them, listen, can I let me just be an ambassador,
Okay. And
so that was essentially how I started being involved. It was really a one-man show. I became an ambassador, and I think the reason I wanted to get involved was my younger sister, Nikki, is 8 years younger than I. So I spent a lot of time sort of being almost a father figure in her life. Not that my father wasn't, but my parents both worked a lot, and so her and I were together a lot. So I often played the father figure role, in certain instances, being 8 years older than her, and I think so I had that paternal sort of instinct, ingrained from then. And I think when these girls went missing, I just thought of my little sister, at that age, because I knew her so well at that age, and how it would affect me. And I couldn't.
Sure. What if it was her? Wow.
I couldn't imagine.
Sure.
What it would be like. And
wow.
I
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, like it's like
sure.
saying I wasn't even an adult or a parent yet. So, I mean, now even more so, it's unimaginable. But back then, even, I think because I had this little person that was in my care, I could imagine what it felt like. And I just wanted to get involved. And then I did. And within a year of being an ambassador, this person that started the page said, look, he can't do it. And he had all kinds of psychological problems himself. And he didn't realize it grew into something that he didn't realize was going to be it. The need for it was so great. And so he asked if I would be the chairman.
Okay.
I was like, well, listen, interestingly, I was on a flight to Nelspruit to go and host an event as an MC. And on the flight, I was reading a book. And the book was about a father who lost his daughter to, being kidnapped.
Yeah.
And
was it The Shack?
This book was so moving. I didn't mention the name because there's some controversy that came out later. But that, I don't care about that. What I cared about was this father losing his child.
Just the idea, yeah.
And the story of it, and this and the forgiveness that he had to muster and what he went through. But the point for me was this losing of the child, and I was crying, man. I was crying so bad.
Sure.
On a plane, flying to Nelspruit to go and do a job. I was, how small the Nelspruit plane is. Okay?
Yeah. I've been
there. You said it's a two seats, sometimes the single seat against the window, and I'm like, oh gosh, I can't be doing this now. And I was snorting trana there. And people, I think, were starting to notice, and I was like, okay, I got to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom and I cried silently, but the tears were streaming. I just felt this terrible, freaking visceral pain, know. And I was praying so hard. I said, Lord Jesus, I don't know, God, I don't know what I can do. Who am I? But if there's anything I can do, please tell me. I'll do it. Please just tell me, how can I help? What can I do? Anyway, I get into my seat, try and stop the tears, get off the plane, switch my phone on, the messages come through as your phone goes on. And I get a message from this guy, and he says, listen, Nico, I'm sorry, but and we'd started a board already. There were some other people who'd come on board. And he said, listen, I've decided to step down, for various reasons. And everyone's agreed they'd like to appoint you as chairman. All you have to do is accept. And I'm like,
What?
What?
I just
No.
prayed this.
No. And then God's like,
You just prayed.
really? You asked, and then I offered, and then you said, I was like, oh, come on, God. So I remember saying, look, I don't know what it takes. I don't know what it involves. You'll have to tell me, and
How
I'll
much
have to
time?
learn.
Yeah.
But all I can say is, yes, I'll do it, because I knew. I that was, and so I got involved. And for about 10 years, almost, other board members came and go, and we had everyone who was on board missing children ever to this day. We stay in contact with most of them, and they're just amazing, wonderful people. But, when you're doing voluntary work, it's tough. It's tough, and life comes calling, and people leave the country. And so, but I stayed, and I've been on board ever since I started, and people have come and gone and blessed it with their presence. My sister Nikki was even at one point. She was running the organization, which was amazing. And then eventually it grew to a point where I couldn't run it by myself. At some point, I was actually funding salaries by myself.
Yo.
And I brought in my very good friend Thomas Dixon, who's a businessman extraordinaire, semi kind of retired, and he was like, yeah, I want to get involved. Okay. And he took missing children to a place that I could never have done. He runs it like a smoothly oiled machine, like I could never have done. Sure. Together, we hired and appointed Bianca van Aswegen as our national coordinator. She's taken it to a place that no one ever could have done. She's got a forensics background in terms of studying. She is a powerhouse, dynamite cracker of a person, and she has a massive passion for finding missing children. Thomas has a massive passion for running the organization, and he runs it like a business, like it should be. So essentially, in the last, I think, 7 years, maybe Tom has been running it. I did the first 10, and I'm essentially now just an ambassador again, and as it should be. It's been run very beautifully and well by them. And what we do is we help. When a child goes missing, we help the authorities by being a bridge between the public and the authorities. We help find that child by viralizing photos of them, by guiding people through the process of how to report a child missing. And let me just say, you do not wait 24 hours. I just have to slide that in there. Okay. If a child is missing, 5 minutes is all you need. Run to the nearest police station and report that child missing. And don't let them tell you have to wait. Yeah. That's wrong. And so essentially that's what we do. And it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be part of such an organization. And we've got amazing other organizations that we work hand in hand with, because the topic and the field of human trafficking and missing children is so wide, and there's so many mitigating factors that you need a bunch of organizations working hand in hand to really to take this thing head on. That's so sad and so hectic that's a reality. How would you describe the seriousness of this problem in South Africa? Yeah. Well, listen, the easiest way to say it for people to understand is that the biggest criminal enterprises in the world, apart from the pharmaceutical industry, I'm talking about criminal, are guns, armaments, illegal guns and arms trade, and drugs. Yeah? Well, right up there with them is human trafficking. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And typically those three actually go together. Well, the people, sadly, it's syndicated. People think it's opportunists who just quickly, no, it's usually, there are different kinds of, there's so many forms of human trafficking. Even parents abducting their children because they don't have custody, that's a form of human trafficking, or abduction, or a reason for abduction. But the point of the matter is that it's a big business worldwide. And the movie Sound of Freedom highlighted one sliver of how this transpires. Yeah. And it's based on the true story of Tim Ballard, who is a government agent who turned private, and they started an organization, and they literally go and save children. But I tell you what, I've spoken to people, amazing people in our country, who fight this incredible, dark, heinous crime. And one person that comes to mind that is our own Tim Ballard, I call her, is Emma van der Walt, and she's with Brave to Love, and she is this, bold, beautiful, strong Afrikaanse vrou, You know, when you walk past her down the street, she looks like she, you know, belongs in a fashion magazine, but she goes in with her bodyguards,
Really?
and the military,
Oh my
and they go and
goodness.
save kids.
That's amazing.
And we have amazing people in this country working
Sure.
to physically actually combat human trafficking on the ground.
Mm.
But we have a massive problem worldwide, and South Africa is one of the countries that are rated very high on, you know, every country is placed on a tier list of why it's a human trafficking destination or a problem country, because our borders are so lax. So they use borders to make the trail for a human go cold because of, you know, just all the ways you can do so. And so our country is not only a transit country where people use our borders to go from one country to the next so that the trail goes cold. We're a destination country.
Oof.
And we're a origination country. So people steal from our country to take to other countries. People in our country buy humans from other countries. And America is the same.
And then there's
America's
obviously
got a
this
massive human trafficking problem.
Yeah, and then there's a
Massive.
market, obviously.
There's a huge
unfortunately.
market. And you know,
that for me is the worst. The fact that it is a business says that there's a market.
Yeah.
Why is there a market?
Oh, there's a massive market.
Because people are broken.
And
because men don't know what it means to be
100%.
men. It's so sad.
100%. And you know, that's one of the big things. Myself and Vat, who is a massive proponent, and he's lectured on human trafficking. He used to be a policeman. He used to be an undercover policeman. And he now works internationally with, and he's just been promoted. I'm not going to mention too much about it because I don't know how much I can talk about him. But the biggest thing he takes on, one of the big things he takes on, is the buyers. He says, why are we going after the human traffickers? We should be going after the buyers as well.
Sure.
People who buy human trafficked persons, children in most cases.
Yeah.
Those people are the ones, if you can stop the demand, you'll stop the supply. That's the case in
there you go.
Any business.
Any business, yeah.
And that's what they're fighting to do because, you know, I try and tell people this who struggle with porn, who struggle with all kinds of, you know, our social media is one scroll away from pornography all the time. If you struggle with it, all right, just picture this. Try and understand this that I'm going to say now. There's a massive chance, a huge chance, that girl on that OnlyFans page or picture or pornography video that you're watching is being coerced. She's enslaved. Oh, she looks like she's having the time of her life. If she doesn't, she gets beaten.
Sure.
She's on drugs because that's how they keep them controlled. So what you're watching, if you enjoy that kind of material, is you're watching a human traffic. Very good chance that yes, of course, there are people who do this because they think that's the way they want to live their lives and it's a choice, etc., etc. That can be argued. But what you're probably watching is someone who doesn't want to be there, who's being abused. And you just paid, which means you're part of the trade. Yeah. If you paid, you're part of the trade. And that's a hard fact, man. That's a hard fact. Sure. And we need to face that.
Yeah.
So every time you watch a porn or pornographic material, ask yourself, just entertain for a split second the idea that that girl doesn't want to be there. I was in Thailand once. Christy and I went. Honeymoon. It was beautiful. We've gone there subsequently. The one time we were driving around looking for a place to go and have a sunset cocktail, you know, beautiful sunsets in Thailand. We drove around, we hired a little Suzuki Jeep, and it was so cool. It was amazing. We were just loving it, being young and married and in love, and stopped at this beautiful little village, and there was this beach bar sort of set up, and the sun was setting. We parked and we were busy deciding which place we're going to go to, and I looked up and I saw these three girls, and they looked about 14, you know, dressed very alluringly. And I was like, well, that's weird. And they were standing at this bar, and you could see, and we were aware that there were these kind of places. I mean, you know, it's not just Thailand, it's all over the place. And we looked at these girls, and I was like, oh, my word. You know, it's red light district. Obviously, they're standing there waiting for customers, you know. These young girls, they must have been, like I said, 14, 15, dressed like women. But listen, this was the part that hit me the hardest. They were standing there, these 3-4 girls. They each had a little lollipop. They were eating lollipops. Not suggestively, or they were just sitting there eating lollipops. I looked up at what they were watching. There was a TV hanging from the roof, as they'd have in these bars, and they were watching cartoons.
Just kids being kids.
They were just kids eating a sweet, watching a cartoon like they should have been.
Yeah.
And yet they were being
trying to escape for a moment.
Oh,
that breaks you.
That breaks you, because we're
and
there.
What do you do in that moment?
Like, you pray.
That's hectic.
You pray. You pray for them, because there's nothing you can do. I've been in a position before when I was very young, which haunts me to this day. And I remember when I was a youngster, I went on a swimming tour once, and myself and the guy whose house I stayed at, because you would go on a swimming tour we went to Durban, and then you'd stay at someone's house and they'd entertain you and look after you, and then you do the same when they came to Pretoria. And I remember we went into he said, come, let's sneak out, we're going to go to this club. And so we went and we snuck out, and we hiked, and we got into the wrong place. The cab dropped us off, or the person that picked us up dropped us off in the wrong place. And so we were in this very dodgy area, and I remember we were walking down this aisle, down this dark alleyway, and the next thing is you could hear this music thudding, almost like there was a nightclub somewhere underground. And the next thing, this door burst open, and this girl came stumbling out, and she was dressed like in heels, and like you could see she was a certain sort of in a certain trade. And we took this in, and there was this dark street, and it was this weird moment, and this guy came out, and he grabbed her, and he smacked her hard. I could hear the crack down the street. Ugh. And we're young, man. We're like 15. We shouldn't definitely not have been there. And I remember just screaming, hey! Like, what? Like my dad taught me, you never hit a woman. That's like ingrained into me.
Yeah.
And this guy whipped around, and he looked at me. He was this burly fellow. And as I said that, out of the shadows just stepped these people from around us.
Yo.
I went ice cold what I saw. Like my mind saw it, but my gut knew what was happening. My mind was trying to process it. And my buddy gripped me, and he was like, bro, shut up. And I looked at him, and I looked at the situation. And before we could act, this guy grabbed this girl, picked her up, and pulled her back into the club, and the door shut, and the guys disappeared. And we looked at each other, and we just bolted.
That's terrible.
We just ran. And to this day, that scene haunts me.
That's bone-chilling.
Because could I have done something? I was 15. They would have killed us.
Yeah.
We were scared. We were cowards. We ran.
I don't think you were cowards,
no one to tell.
But it's a terrible situation to be in. Yo.
It was horrible. I've actually written that scene for a script, and writing it haunts me, even writing it, because that woman, I still remember the look in her eyes. I still remember the helplessness.
Yes, will someone save me?
Enslavement. She was a slave. And subsequent, the stories, I've interviewed many victims, survivors of human trafficking, and the stories they tell you, it was that story.
That's hectic.
People who have been chained. There was a girl who was chained under a bar counter in a nightclub. That's where they kept her.
Like an animal.
Like an animal.
Yeah.
Amazing stories of how people escaped.
How did we get here as a society?
Yeah. I don't think we've ever not been this.
Yeah. There's always been this element. Go read the Bible. It's probably just worse than ever.
Go read what was happening in Canaan, in Nineveh. Children were being sacrificed since the beginning of time.
Sure.
It's frightening.
It's actually the church that changed it for a while.
Yeah.
And now we're right back there.
William Wilberforce and so many others fought to abolish slavery.
Isn't slavery now actually worse than ever?
Than ever in the history of mankind.
That's
we now have more humans enslaved, even if you consider the population growth.
Sure.
From a statistical point of view, there are more people now.
The percentage is worse than ever.
Percentage is worse than ever.
That is just wrong.
Isn't that absolutely unacceptable?
So what do we do? I mean, what do we do?
Yeah.
As parents who have children, how do we keep them safe?
Yeah.
And secondly, how do we, where we are at, realistically, make a difference.
Well, let me scoot over this quickly, but it's very important. What you just asked is, as parents, what do we do? Because let's be honest, the first thing anyone who hears this is thinking is, oh my God, I don't want that happening to my child. Yes, and don't feel bad. That's how you should feel.
It's a normal instinct.
Your children come first. That's normal instinct. If everyone did that, we would have a safe country. We'd have safe people. What I want to say to people who think like that is, how do you keep your child safe? All right, because when I was a kid, when I was 9, 10, 8, 7, the most dangerous place for a child was some dark alley or out in the street or in some dodgy park. Gosh, and even back then, the parks were safe.
It was better.
It was much better.
Yeah.
But that's where the danger lay. Stranger danger, remember?
Yeah.
Well, these days, the most dangerous place for your child, is in their bedroom with their phone. You see, everything that used to happen in those dark, dodgy alleyways is now happening here. Remember, this is a screen, okay?
And a camera.
You can, oh yeah.
That's
you
the
can
scary
use
part.
this screen to look as a window, right? Because you're looking through a window and seeing something. So you can use the screen to look at heaven, read the Bible, beautiful movies, beautiful pictures, beautiful creativity, beautiful songs, beautiful things, nature, life. You can use it to look at that. You can also look through this into hell. And you give your children that ability by giving them a cell phone with an internet connection and no supervision. That is the first thing you can do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying take their phones away. If they have phones, it's too late. You'll turn them into monsters if you take it away. Or maybe not. Maybe do it. What I am saying is know exactly what's going on that phone. Firstly, my kids, no password on your phone. Firstly, I tell them that's my phone. You can borrow it. One day you're going to buy your own phone. Because let's be honest, those damn things are expensive, right? So it's mine.
Yeah.
I'm borrowing it to you so you can be in contact with your friends. All right? But that phone is open. I can go in there at any time and look at any messages.
Yeah.
No disappearing messages. I want to know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look. I want you to know that I could if I wanted to.
Yes.
Guess what? I don't have a locked phone. My phone is open. My phone lies there. My wife can go in there. And she does. Many times she needs my phone for something and it's like, go ahead.
Yeah.
If you're scared
Of what they
your
might
wife
find.
might find.
Yeah, there's something wrong.
Something's happening, bro. You need to fix that. Look at that.
If you have two phones.
If you have two phones, oh, jeez. It's my work phone. Open phone policy. Your kids must understand that too.
Important.
So that they know that at any point that they shouldn't be engaging in something that they should feel embarrassed about that daddy or mommy is going to look at.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
And limited time. With
limited time,
limited
screen time.
access.
My kids have limited screen time. And listen, the faces they will pull to try and twist your rubber arm.
I know.
Don't break. But also remember that they do need, it's the world they're moving into.
Yeah.
So cutting them off, I think there's an age limit to where they should start.
Yeah.
But once it's started, make them realize it's a responsibility, it's dangerous.
Something
Talk
to
them about
manage.
that, all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So that's number one. That's what you can do at home. When you travel on holiday, what's the first thing you do when you get to Plettenberg Bay, Belito, Croatia, Italy? What's the first thing you do? Well, you look for the closest place to have a lekker spaghetti bolognese, right? And watch the sunset. But it should be, where's the closest police station? Where's the closest hospital?
Sure.
Know where to go in that country or at that holiday destination if your child goes missing.
Sure.
Okay. The other thing you do is you go, you know what, it's holiday. Usually at home, they have to let me know where they are at all times and they have to be home at this time. No, they're on holiday. They're on the beach with their friends. It's okay.
We're in a first world country.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're safe.
Well, let me tell you something. The syndicates use other children, older children, attractive young men, attractive young women to procure other children.
Yo,
Listen,
that's scary.
You're working with professionals in a very, very high-end business. These people have systems in place.
Yeah.
They have people working for them. When you hear about the human trafficking stories that come out, it's some guy that looked after a girl, picked up off the street, saw that she was vulnerable. They can spot a victim from a mile away. So when you go on holiday, Make sure you know where the police station is. Make sure you know who your kids are hanging out with. You want to meet all of them. And they don't go to some party, even if they're 16. You want to know who the guys are that they're going with. If it's boys, where are they going? Remember, boys get human trafficked as well. They get drugged as well.
Sure.
I can tell you horror stories about men that have been drugged.
Yeah.
When they were on holiday in another country. A year ago, we heard a story, a friend of mine's friends, and that they went on holiday and they were drugged. Men, young men. The point of the matter is, know that when you go on holiday, criminals don't.
Yeah.
You know, and these are simple things. And then your last point, if I want to get involved beyond just my family, and remember, I'm just touching on the surface here. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are amazing organizations out there that you can join, that you can support. Missing Children South Africa, absolutely. Please do support. Go to missingchildren.org.za, either to report or to learn, to get info, or to support.
That's good.
And then Brave to Love is an amazing organization, and they help victims. They recover victims. They also help victims. You know, one of the biggest problems we have in our country and worldwide is once you've rescued a girl.
What now?
Or a child.
Yes.
From a home where the parents are pimping out their own children.
Oh, that breaks you.
You're not taking that child out of the brothel. You can't take them home. Where do they go? They need to go into a safe house. We don't have safe houses. Kin Culture, K-I-N Culture, safe houses. There are organizations that are doing these things, that are trying to get our children off the streets.
I recently met with the guy who runs it. It's an amazing organization.
Amazing organization. So what I'm saying is contact you, contact me, contact missingchildren.org.za.
Yeah.
We're on social media, 072 Missing, and you will find us on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever, on TikTok. You will contact you and ask, how can I get involved? Man, by all means, we'll point you in the right directions. What skills do you have? Where do you want to place them? We can use them. Absolutely.
Amazing.
And if you don't know if you don't have skills, but you want to support, donate to these organizations.
They need money.
They need money. They need to be able to, and make it a debit order donation. You don't have to give it to my organization. But whoever you support, make it a debit order. I'll tell you why. Organizations, NPOs, non-profit organizations need to be able to plan.
Yeah.
And if they've got debit orders, they know for the next year, they can plan their expenses accordingly. It's very hard to run an organization where you don't know what you're getting at the end of this month. So whoever you support, even if it's animals or the fire fund or NSRI, whatever it is, make it a debit order.
Yeah.
Don't do a once-off.
Give properly.
Give properly so that they can rely on that. Tell them I'm in it for the next year and stick
beautiful.
to that.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. Stepping on to another subject, I'm making big gear changes because there's so much to talk about. But I'll make this the last one because I think I would just like to delve into what are you currently busy with. And I know that you have written scripts. You've got a movie that you want to get done. At least I know about one, and there's probably more. I know that you've acted recently and stuff that's about to come out. Please tell us just what's happening currently in Nico Panagio's career and what should people be looking out for, and what are some exciting projects that you're busy with?
Well, I think most short-term excitement is hopefully for a lot of people will be the fact that we are finally have Semi-Suit 2, Semi-Suiter.
Woohoo! Semi-Suiter.
Hitting your screens, hitting Netflix to be exact.
That's cool.
In June.
Come on.
Around the 20th or the 21st of June. So watch the socials and we'll give you more clarity on that. So that's coming soon. And we're very excited about that. We had loads of fun. It's 99% of the original cast are back for it.
Brilliant.
So we really had so much fun making the second one. And we look forward to just so many people over the years asking, when are you going to do another one? When are you going to do another one? And I was watching it yesterday with the first one, with my daughters.
Yeah.
And we were just having so much fun laughing at these young characters, and how much we've changed, but also just how great that first Semi-Suit was.
Especially the soundtrack. That one point when you do a montage.
Yeah, there was one track that you featured in that, didn't you?
Just for those who don't know, that was my first time I got a song in a movie. It was Klein Bikkie in Semi-Suit.
And it was such a good song. We had so much fun with it. And it was so good. I mean, you know as well how great it was to be part of that pioneering.
Yeah, it was exciting.
James and
Very
Anel
exciting.
Alexander
and awesome people.
And Joshua, who was our director, Joshua Rouse, and just what an amazing job they did for the first time, a South African romantic comedy in Afrikaans.
Come on.
And it broke every record.
And
to this
people
day,
want it back.
People want it back.
The fact that there's demand is huge.
Yeah. And we had so much fun playing these absolutely beautiful characters written so beautifully by Sandra Vaughan and Karine de Tooy at the time. And really
Wil jy die klein lepel of die groot lepel wees? That was, I mean, one of the funniest moments.
That actually, incidentally, we watched that yesterday. We were laughing. Me and Lo, to this day, we're very close, and we've done a couple of other things together. But we really enjoyed that, and it's so good to be able to put out the second one. I can tell you that it's so much fun. We loved making it. It's very hard making film in South Africa. It's hard to produce a film. It's hard to get it onto screen. I've watched a lot of local films. Some of them good, some of them really crap. And I don't care, whoever, even if it's a bad movie, I just have so much respect for you if you've gotten it to screen, because it's hard, man.
Yeah,
it's
and
hard.
expensive.
It's very expensive, I find it so tough. But creatives just cannot be stopped. You can't stop. You can't keep a good filmmaker down.
Come on.
Somehow they find a way. And so, that's exciting.
So that's coming up
in June. I've just finished I can't tell you much more about it other than I play a Spanish commander of a...
You can't tell the name even of the movie? Okay.
No, but it's an international co-production, and it's an action... It's a bit of an action film, so I had loads of fun making it. I speak with them.
Are you allowed to share your accent with us?
No. I'm not going to do anything just yet, because it's kind of forms part of the character. But I had loads of fun. I'm very excited for that. And
I recently ran into Brandon Orret, who is with you in the film, and he was going on about your accent. But okay, we'll wait for next time.
Yeah. We had loads of fun.
Cool.
And I think that's what's really great is that you, like I said, I don't make money out of just being an actor. I have to do lots of other things. So now I can choose what I want to do. There's so much more I'd like to do, and we don't get to choose how much of that comes our way, but we do get to choose when stuff comes. And so when something like this comes and you can sink your teeth into a character, it's just so lekker. So I really enjoyed that. Cool. Loved that about Semi Suter. And yes, I did. I wrote a comedy which I struggled to get to screen. That's why I have so much respect for it. But it's a rom-com, and it's really good. And I know it's that because the people who told me it was really crap the first time I wrote it eventually got to a point where they said, "Okay, now it's good." But the problem is money and financing. It's a huge issue we have in South Africa is financing our independent films. Our distribution, our channels that we can distribute on are very limited. Very little money in this industry, and we're struggling to find a new model that will be a resurgence of our film industry. There's many films being made, but only a few people making money off them, and certainly not the artists. Yeah, certainly not the crew. And that's a big problem in our country that we need to change, which other countries with a much wider audience base, with a much bigger industry have been able to solve with all kinds of systems built into the industry. But ours is embarrassingly inefficient for the support of the very people who make and create. And so it's very sad. It's a bad place. But I always say, if you put a rock in the river and you try and stop the flow, the water is just going to find a way around it. Yeah. And so we're at that point where the creators are trying to find ways around those rocks, and we're going to find it. We're going to leave that rock behind.
The cool thing about being creative is that you find creative ways around obstacles.
Amen, baby. And listen, that's what you need.
Sometimes that makes you better.
Yeah. Adversity is an adventure if you approach it in the right way.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I see it as an adventure. And
Adversity, adventure. There's a pun there.
Well, you can't have adventure without adversity. When I go out with my girls, we go hiking or climbing or biking or whatever, and they come
Adventure
and they get a scratch. I say, if there's no blood, it wasn't an adventure.
Yeah, no, you didn't go out.
You know? So if there's blood, and then they're like, oh, look, that I'm bleeding. It's an adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I love it. It's like Mater doesn't want to get rid of his scratches because it reminds him of good memories.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
every scratch is a memory.
Every scratch is a memory, and I think that's what we need to really approach life. And we're in a very tough time in the world right now. It's tough. It's tough. It's a crazy time, you know. But what do you do in crazy times? You freaking hunker down. You go down to your foundation. You make sure you're solid. Your faith. Approach God, and you know, take your instruction from your leader, man.
Yeah.
Go to God and say, right, we're at war. He's been telling us we're at war since time began.
Yeah.
Go to battle in the spirit. Go to battle in the spirit, whatever it is. But especially now in the world, at night, instead of just praying now for, this and that and this job and that job, and I'm praying for Cyril Ramaphosa, and I'm praying for other of our leaders of our country, and I'm praying for, just conviction in the hearts of our politicians, praying that God would just bring them to their knees in submission. Imagine if we have a politician waking up going, oh my God, I had a Damascus event. I have to save my country. Come on.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
It's possible.
It's possible. We have to pray for our leaders. Stop cursing them.
Yeah.
We want to curse them. We have to pray for them. We have to spiritually war against human traffickers. That I watched this beautiful movie. It's a documentary. The name is, if you can ever get hold of it, watch it, please. It's called Nefarious, Merchant of Souls.
Sure.
And it's made by, is it Magic Lantern Pictures, I think. Ben is one of the producers. The names escape me. If people ask online, we'll find it for them. But the name is Nefarious Merchant of Souls.
Sure.
It's a documentary about these people who got a grant to go and shoot the human trafficking industry in Thailand.
Sure.
They started there, and they just followed the trails that it took them across the world.
Follow the money.
To Greece, to Sweden, to all over Europe.
What?
And they realized, oh my God, this is worldwide. And one of the most powerful parts of that was, the two things that stood out for me was, the one was a human trafficker that had converted. He was one of the people who would capture and keep them in capture and take their passports and help the syndicates run these girls. And he became a champion for them. Wow. He now fights to save human trafficking because he knows how it works. He knows it, intrinsically. And then one of the other beautiful stories was just in this documentary, how these girls would cry out to Jesus in their darkest hour to set them free.
Wow.
And the incredible testimonies of how they miraculously get free of being human trafficked in the most amazing ways. And I've heard it from, not just from this movie, but from I've actually heard testimonies where a girl says she was standing on the corner and saying, Jesus, where are you?
Yeah.
And out of the blue, a woman coming and saying, man, what are you doing here? You look like you need help.
Wow.
I'm from a church. Can I help you?
Yeah.
And her being taken in and saved from this life.
That's amazing.
Spiritual war, bro, that's where we're at.
Power of prayer cannot be underestimated.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
Sure.
Yeah.
Bro, it's been such a pleasure to chat to you.
We can talk for days.
We can apparently talk for days. You must come back when you have a moment so we can continue. But thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And I can see the hand of God on your life, on your marriage, on your family, on your career. May He keep on blessing you and taking you guys from strength to strength and glory to glory. And may all your projects be blessed. May your movie come to screen, and just all the best for you and your family.
Thank you, brother. And I'd be remiss ending this podcast without blessing your work and your endeavors. I know what you're trying to do here. You're showing up. God has given you an anointment and an appointment, and I want to honor you and say, well done, and keep going. And when the adversity comes, feel blessed, because that's just opportunity for growth, right? And people don't realize what goes on behind the scenes here, this little operation. I'm so impressed and inspired, as I said earlier on to you about this. And And, our voices need to be heard. I think it's important that we speak, that we discourse. People have stopped speaking. And we need more platforms. It's not at a podcast. Listen, we can't have enough platforms for long-form discourse. We need more.
Yeah.
So if there's a place to go where people can speak freely, honestly, openly, and not in a quick 5-second or 5-minute beat or sound bite, but can actually unpack thoughts, it needs to be done, and you're doing that. And I want to just bless this podcast. May it go just onwards and be blessed by God.
Thank you so much. Sure, I'll come on your podcast as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I want to give you a present. We had some. Sorry, no, that's my phone.
Oh, that came out
Your
first.
phone is much better, bro. No, I wanted to give you a T-shirt. It's a little hard to see what it looks like. Let me just open it up. So
we'll speed this up in post.
I'm going to do some ASMR.
Ooh, that's actually irritating.
This is our BOLDCAST T-shirt.
Yep.
Here you go.
Yep.
And because boldness is contagious.
Yep.
And I just want to honor you as a man of God that's bold and courageous, standing up for the truth. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Enjoy the tea.
There it is. Speak now.
Speak
or
now.
forever hold your peace. There we go.
Thanks so much. God bless you. And take care, brother.
Thank you, brother.